ask, how do you do it? How do you manage to do it together? I think one of the things that keeps me sane is this powerful village. In Girls for Girls, I've, seen the reality and what we mean when we say, I have a village of sisters. I have a team of people that I work with. Because one thing I've learned in life, if you want to do something, doing it alone, yes, you may succeed, but trying to tell me the staying power, the sustainability, the momentum, the energy, we get it from our sisters. And I really want to thank the ladies on the call today. It's been a hard slog, but Betty, Velma, Mercy, they've kept it going. Angela, the whole Kenya team. Kenya is leading our training this month. So I welcome you. I welcome you. And for me, I ask you, as you join us today, and I know some of you have been mentees, and we really celebrate you. We really welcome you back as mentors, because once you've received, it's always good to give back. But then some of you are new. You've been asked by people in your community, by your workmates, by your friends, please mentor me. I need to be mentored. And you think, how do I start? I don't even know where to start. Let me tell you, this journey is a journey of commitment. It's a journey of love. I've told you that people ask us, how come you're still doing it? How many years down the road? And for me, it's the belief that because I have impacted others, but most importantly, because I've seen my life impacted by this sisterhood, by this community, by seeing how just giving of ourselves, of our stories, we're able to change people, to impact them, to touch them, to show them that they have options in their lives, that they can do and be who they want to be, and that they can achieve the goals they have set out. It's just fuel to my life. It is fuel to my life. And so I welcome you on behalf of Girls for Girls. I welcome you to this journey. I won't go over the whole long journey of why I started Girls for Girls and where we are now. I'll tell you a bit briefly through, but I want you to think through your own journey. Why are you here this morning? Why are you here this morning? Yes, you might have been a former trainee or mentee, or you're new. Why are you here this morning? Please put your expectations in the chat for those who haven't. I know some of you have said you're here to learn, you want to know how to mentor, you want to see how to engage. And for me, my promise to you, as Mercy has said, this session allows us to share with you our methodology, our approach, and our content. You will each have received materials. I hope you managed to see them. We have a mentor's guide, something like this. So yeah, mentor's guide. I hope you did receive your materials yesterday. Please check in the email from Velma or from your country coordinators for the materials. And Mercy, Velma, just pop the mentor's guide in the chat. We do provide you with materials that allow you to actually express yourself when you're training or mentoring others. Because we know, I have been asked several times, Alan, can you help me? In my day-to-day job, I cover Africa, the entire continent. You can imagine I'm seeing and traveling across Africa every single day, every single week in this job I do. And everywhere I go, I meet young women, I meet girls. All of them have dreams. All of them want to be something. They want to do something, but they often don't have the right role models in their lives. And so for us, through Girls, we are saying, look, we are providing you and equipping you with material. We are not making you trainers. We are not making you experts. We are just saying we have a methodology that works, that has been proven. We have content that we have seen has been proven. All the trainers you have today have mentored using Girls for Girls methodology. They can see how it works. So they will be sharing their stories. So we have a methodology, we have content, and we have amazing trainers. And for us, the mentor is the centerpin in our story. The mentor, because we have learned that all the stories we see, all the role models we see are often from other countries, from the Western civilization. You see people from, if you were to ask a young woman, if I were to ask all of you here, who is your role model? Many of us are going to point to Oprah. We are going to point to Michelle Obama, who we have never seen, we may never see. But imagine you yourself are potentially a role model in your community. Someone can actually say, wow, I really love Mercy. I love the way she talks. I love the way she does her work. I love, these are the qualities I love about her and I want to emulate them. So we empower you to tell your story. We empower you to actually reach out to mentor girls. And I see you saying you didn't receive materials, but if you're on the link today, the assumption is you've received materials because you'd have gotten the link from one of the coordinators. So that link, the email that carried the link should have the materials. So briefly about Girls for Girls. Girls for Girls is a global mentoring program we started a few years ago whilst we were at Harvard. We just all had a shared dream to say we want to impact, but we didn't know how. Many of us have been for decades in the women's movement. I'm a lawyer by training. I have done legal aid. I have supported activism. I have marched on the streets of Uganda for domestic laws. I have done so much to fight for land rights, against domestic violence, property rights, women's rights, gender-based violence. I have done all that. But I kept feeling there's something missing. How can I get a woman who is sitting comfortably in her house but she has a dream to make a difference, be it in her business, be it in the environment? How can I actually get her to step up, to stand up and, fulfill that dream? Why am I marching on the street and women who are being battered are not joining this march? How can I help and not be the agent for these women? How can I actually inspire and engage other women to be their own agents, to actually go forth and fulfill their dreams? And so for me, in the space at Harvard, where I was at that time, at the Kennedy School, I discovered other women who had similar dreams about impacting their communities in different ways. And we all quickly realized that perhaps through mentorship, we could have an impact. Just quickly go through the slides. So these are some of the co-founders with our dean of students then. We came together and we're all from all over the world. I don't know who's managing the slides. Yeah, and so we didn't know what we wanted to do, but we knew that if we could tell our stories, if we could mentor girls, we might have an impact. And so we quickly came up with, our tagline was empowering girls to lead. But honestly, we didn't know what empowerment looked like. I couldn't tell you that empowering a girl will, look like this. And so sometime in 2017, 2018, I went to the Impact Hub in Berlin and really sat down with others and said, what does it mean to empower? But at this time, I had started mentoring. We had started in Uganda, we had piloted, we're in Niger, and I started quickly seeing some different things. One, of course, we always wanted the numbers. Everywhere you went, they were saying, we want women in the board, but there are no women. You look at all these panels on TV, and they're only men talking about sciences. And you think, aren't there scientists? Here we have Neo, who is a mining engineer, but they're never able to be in these spaces. So we wanted there to be a pipeline of women who, when they call on women for boards, or women in parliament, or women in classrooms, there are women who can be chosen and picked on, who can be presented, who can put themselves forward. So the first goal, we said, if we are empowering, it's about numbers. We want to empower and generate a pipeline of leaders by 2025. And we were bold and were ambitious. And we said, we are going to go for 1 million. Of course, we are looking at these numbers again. The reality is we may not hit 1 million by 2025, but we are excited about the journey. We are excited that we are doing something to empower girls, because we're already seeing girls being empowered in terms of numbers. They are training, they're getting aware about their own rights and about how they can impact their communities. So one of the things about the 1 million is that we quickly realized we had to train mentors, because many people want to mentor, but they don't know how. So we came up with this curriculum. We asked our professors at Harvard. They worked with us. We came with modules. So you're going to have an arsenal of videos. You have the mentor's guide. All these, some of the materials are Harvard curated. The professors worked with us. And so we have a program that is really global. It is proven, and the frameworks in there have been proven that they work. And I'll take you quickly through the modules. So when we train a mentor, we assume that each mentor in their lifetime will reach 100 girls, and we mentor in circles. So we believe that if this year you mentor 10 girls, next year 10, hopefully you will contribute to our numbers of 1 million mentees. We are revising the end goal to around 2030, 2035, but we are still strong and passionate and committed. And then the second thing we said, how does an empowered girl look like? And let me tell you, those who have mentored, Robin, Mercy, Betty, Angela, they will tell you, when you mentor young women or girls, you will quickly see the difference. The self-confidence is about you. Even you, as you're going out to mentor, you start quickly seeing, oh my God, someone who came here timid, couldn't talk, is now can't stop talking. I go into spaces and the girls can't stop talking. And you can imagine these are the same women, for instance, the young women in their 20s and 30s. When they're in the offices, they are not opening their mouths. They are doing all the hard work. They're preparing the PPT, the power presentation. Guess who goes to do it? The boss. Who is promoted? The person, or maybe their friend, the male. They are not speaking. They are not visible. So we quickly learned that empowerment showed up in so many ways, in the confidence, in the way they communicated, in the application for jobs. You have heard the story so many times. A woman will only apply if she feels she has 100%. We have seen girls take up action. We are seeing women in positions they never thought. We are seeing girls on boards. We are seeing women in parliament. It's amazing when you see the power of G4G across the globe. It is super amazing. And we initially started with girls 15 to 25, but we quickly realized there was a big gap for women in the late 20s, early 30s, late 30s, and even women in the 40s and 50s. You find sisters in the 40s who feel they have lost their dreams. They have stagnated. They don't know what they can do anymore. They feel too old. Or in the 30s where they feel too overwhelmed. Children, husband, work. So what suffers? Their careers suffer. They drain out of the pipe, the career pipe. You find they have started, for instance, in banks. We have worked in banks. You start, many of them are there 50-50 men and women. By the time you go up to the management and C-suite, it's only men. There are hardly any women, because in the 30s, we get so taken over by our lives, family, everything that, we feel we don't have a support system, we are out. So this is what Girls for Girls is all about. It's not just the numbers, and thank you, Joyce, for your flowers. It's not just about the numbers, it's about the action. We are empowering girls to take action. If you see that job advert, go for it. If you see that opportunity, go for it. Your dream, go for it. That is it. And that's the role of you, the mentor. You're not going to be a trainer. You're really inspiring this girl with your own story. Because in your journey, you faced hurdles, you faced challenges, but you're still here. You're standing. That's the most powerful thing about Girls for Girls, that we are not sharing what's on our CV. Oh, I'm the best this, I'm the best. We are being authentic and sharing the true life's journey. Because when these girls see, like if you read my CV here, you would think I'm the best of everything. But I have also failed. I have also fallen short, but I'm here. I'm standing, and that's the message you want to pass on to girls. And your role as a mentor is super critical. Let's quickly run through the rest of the slides. I won't talk through them. Of course, the gaps around leadership and why we felt that through mentorship, we want to reach many people. I won't go into the severe underrepresentation and, everywhere. You look around you, look in your office, look in your community, you will still see severe underrepresentation. Women are still severely underrepresented. And if we go at the same space we're going, it will take us 200 years. So we must do much more. And for us, through mentorship, we believe that, please go through the slide again. Through mentorship, we believe that the power of a mentor is to create that safe space where you're giving the vision, the courage, and the skills. And we're going to give you that, to equip you with the skilling aspects. These numbers have actually been superseded. I don't know, I missed that. We are in 27 countries, over 10,000 girls have been mentored, and we have trained over 1,500 mentors as of now. So this needs to be updated, sorry about that. So it's really now a global movement. In Africa alone, we are in over 10 countries, Botswana, Tanzania, Malawi, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Niger, Uganda, Kenya, South Africa, and we are soon opening in Ghana. Senegal has also launched its own global program. So we are in quite a number of countries, and then we are also all around the world. Let's go on, please. Mercy or Velma? Yeah, I've talked about this. Your role as a mentor, and through mentorship, we believe in this whole power of community. One of the things we notice is many girls walk alone because we've been hurt. We believe that women don't like each other. In fact, if you get a female boss, they say, my God, Alan, and will you survive? Now me, you can imagine I'm a female boss. So I don't even want to know what people say, but I hope that I'm the kind that is supportive, that provides that conducive space, We are trying to dismantle those perceptions and that reality that women don't support each other. That's why we start with a sister's creed, because there are women like yourselves. Imagine, I've not woken you out of your bed today. You've come by yourself. There are women like you. There are women like Joyce who has said, me, I'm going to touch the women in my community. And she's doing it, and she's doing it, and she's doing it. Why don't we sing about these women? Why are we always saying women bash each other? Women pull each other down? No, not all women pull each other down. There are so many women like yourselves who also want to support others. And for us, what we do is we say, if you can create that safe space where girls and women can come and sit and share, and you're not a Jesus Christ, you're not a Messiah, you're not there to change their lives. You're only there to create that safe and supportive environment and to share your story. By those two things, you create a holding space, even online, where the girls can share because they have so much to say, but they don't have where to say it. They don't have where to say it. Imagine you can't go to your workmates and say, I am feeling low. I feel I cannot present well. People will look at you and say, you're not capable. When they're talking in the management meeting, they may say, this Ellen, she lacks confidence. We cannot promote her. But in this safe space, you can say some of these things and people will share with you and help you. Let's quickly run through the rest. And I talk about the role of a mentor. I've talked about the courage, the vision, and the skills. Again, you're not super trainers. All you are is you're a mentor, and your role is to provide that courage, the vision, and the skills through the materials, through your story, and through, we bring on guest speakers and all, and I'll speak briefly about that. So we have 6 modules. Our program is around 6 modules. So sisters, when you commit, please commit. Don't start module 1, then you don't come back. We want mentors who are committed. We don't want tourists. We don't want people to say, oh, I heard it's a nice thing. It's a good feeling. Then you come and then you don't mentor. Let me give you an example. We mentor young women living with HIV/AIDS. You can imagine this girl shares her story of either how she was raped or how she was born with HIV and how she's living with it. She's 28. And then this Saturday, you have a session. Then you don't come for 2 more Saturdays. She has to open up and tell that story all afresh to a new mentor. Can you imagine that stigmatization? And, maybe she was raped. Maybe it is not right. So we ask for commitment. And these 6 sections, we have seen that they build on each other, and you're going to hear the trainers are going to take you very briefly through them. So there's introduction and building trust. You cannot mentor where there's no trust. But you also show the girls that through creating these safe spaces and villages, they themselves can go ahead to fulfill their dream. For instance, if a girl says, I want to be a doctor, you know that as a single doctor, it is very tough. But if she were to set up a clinic, say, with 5 others, look at how far she can go. Just look at how much we have delivered through G4G by building trust and by allowing people to share this vision and this purpose. The second module is on courageous leadership. And this one is about leadership that is not positional. It's about that leadership that is personal. How you take an initiative to act on a dream that you have, on a passion that you have. You love the environment. You want to take action. How can you move forward on it? So that is courageous leadership. The third is on the art of communication, and the fourth on negotiations. These are skills based. The first 2 are really around vision and all. Communications and negotiations are critical skills for women. We have discovered that because of gender, because of the way we are brought up, because of so many other reasons, women are seen as not able to communicate well their message, or not even being able to negotiate in spaces. And so we must empower girls with these skills. And then the 5th, public service, and Angela will take us through this. It's really about girls getting into those positions where you can control decisions, you can influence decisions. Imagine if you're not at the board table. Yesterday and the whole of last week, this week I was at the board table deciding decisions that impact millions. And my ability to sit at that table makes a difference. But not only to sit, to be able to speak, to be able to communicate, to be able to engage. And that's what we want girls to do. So Angela will take you through public service and why it's critical that we get girls to step up and fill up positions wherever, be it Rotary, be it in the school, be it wherever you are. In the office, they ask you, and you just say, I'm there. Who is going to be in charge of welfare? I'm there. Trust me, that welfare committee, before you know it, they will be saying, oh, everything Allen is in charge. Allen is in charge. But if you don't step up, no one will ever know your capacities, to lead. And then, of course, the last in ethics and values, the critical decisions we have to take in our lives, and what informs those decisions, and the strategies and the frameworks that we have. So we also tell mentors that you can add other sessions, because we know if you're working in a community of young girls, they might want to do CV writing. They might want to do entrepreneurship skills. They might want financial skills. But our 6 modules are critical. The 1 to 6, then these additional extra. Let me talk briefly about how our mentorship works. And I'm cognizant of the time. So our framework is on 3. We have mentorship. So this is you where you're central as a mentor. You create that circle, that space, and many of you are going to join our existing cohorts. A cohort is, for instance, you go into a community, say a school. Say in South Africa, they work with, say, which school? Let me give you, say a university, University of Joburg, and you're working in the law faculty with 30 girls, and you break them into circles, each of 5 to 10 girls. Each of those circles gets a mentor. So you're working within a bigger space, but you have your small circle that you care for. This is your role as a mentor. Then we also have inspiration and learning. I've told you about the videos from the professors, but we also often bring in guest speakers. So within your community, for instance, if you're talking about courageous leadership, you really bring in a leader who you think has been courageous in the way they have acted to change their community or to impact their world. And then, of course, we have a powerful network. You can see just alone on the trainers here, you're blessed with trainers from Botswana, from Kenya, from Uganda, from South Africa. It's an amazing village that we have. And a global network. You become friends with people, even if you've not traveled to the countries, but you're very close friends. Many of the ladies here I've not met in person, but they are my sisters. Yeah, Quickly, the last one on the role of the mentor. Yeah, this one is a very important slide, and it's in your shared again. Let me tell you, sisters, let me tell you, here in G4G, we don't ask for PhD. We don't say we want a mentor to be a PhD holder. They must have worked for 7 years. They must have this experience. No, we ask you to come with your passion. We ask you to come with your love for women. We ask you to come as you are. Bring yourself. Actually, I just say bring yourself. We're not asking you to come with this syndrome. I remember going to a country, I think it was Niger, and there was a PhD lady who was saying, you have to have the manuals. This has to have been proven for 7 years. This has to be tested. What is, you know, and I was like, it's not a training. We are not here to, we know what we are bringing is our story. Isn't your story authentic, sisters? Isn't your story authentic? You know your story. You know how you've gotten where you are today. That is what we need. That is the PhD we need. That is what we need. And so for us, we are saying, a mentor is not a teacher or a preacher. You're not here to teach the girls. Actually, when you go and you start lecturing, we don't want that. Because these girls have been living before you came. They've been surviving before you came. You know, they're not here, you're not their savior. You know, they're in South Africa, they have sangomas. You know, across the region, we have blessers or sugar daddies. You're not that. You're not that. You're just there to create a safe space for girls and women to share their stories, to share their pains, and then you bring out options. And the options come through your story, but also the tools we are providing. So please, you're not expected to know everything about everything. You're not expected to talk for the whole hour. All you are is an advisor who listens and gives guidance. You're expected to listen, you facilitate discussions, and you always acknowledge the views of the mentees, their insights, their fears. If someone tells you, I'm scared, the professor really wants to sleep with me, and say, don't be afraid. You know, you're invalidating their fears. Listen, and together find a solution that would help this person not to lose their academic studies, but also not to give in, say, to the professor's sexual advances. So, sisters, this is very key. Come in here knowing you're not a savior. You're here to create a safe space. The last slide, please, and then I'll be done. Yeah, I think these are our expectations. I've talked about mentors who are tourists. For us, we're asking for you to be available, to relate. You see the energy I'm bringing. I had to get it from working out this morning because I was tired. I won't lie to you. I flew back into Nairobi yesterday. It's been very, very heavy. Very, very heavy for me in the last few months. But I have to keep my energy up through. And one of the things that helps me, dancing. I love dancing. I love hanging out with my sisters. And then I try to work out. And now I hadn't been working out a lot, so it puts me down. But the moment I start working out, I'll smile all the way. So we need your energy. We need you. Of course, not all of you can be as energetic as I am, but bring your positive self to the space. Don't go and talk to the girls and then switch off your camera, especially on audio, where we are using visual. And you're just saying, tell me, you know, imagine if I was talking to you like this and I'm so down and sad, you would all switch off. And by the end of the session, you've left, you know? So just be relatable, engaging, empathize, you know, tolerant and tenacious. You need to hang in there. The 6 modules can look like a lot because it's say once every month, once every 3 months, 3 weeks rather. We hope to finish the sessions in 6 months, but please, if you commit to a cohort, please make that time. And I know there are weddings, I know there are birthday celebrations, it's Christmas season, but try to make the time if your cohort is running. Try to make the time, yeah. I think I will stop there. It's an exciting journey. Actually, next year, I want to get back more into mentoring because I'd sort of stepped back, doing a lot of the admin and the global management, but if you don't mentor, I can't even explain to you. For me, we leave those sessions on Saturdays or Fridays or whatever day your group decides to mentor. You leave those sessions feeling like you're walking on air. We call it reverse mentoring. We go in thinking we are the ones mentoring, but instead we get mentored, we get schooled. Because be it girls of 15 to 30 to 20, or being it women, you learn so much from any group you're working with. So allow yourselves to learn. So thank you so much, sisters. This is the Mentor's Guide. You have it. It will give you all you need to know about how to mentor. But as we say, it's a muscle that you develop with practice. You cannot say, I'm a mentor, and yet you've never mentored. You have to practice. You have to dig in. You have to go into these circles. And then that's when truly you learn how to mentor. So thank you. Back to you, Mercy. We have a very long agenda. Be present. We'll be doing stretches. but just be available to learn from these amazing mentors that are with us this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Alan, sorry. And flowers to Alan. I mean, haven't you felt the energy that is in the room? So at G4G, this is how we appreciate each other and how we appreciate others. So flowers to Alan, thank you so much for taking us through that session and reminding us that as mentors, we are not here as saviors, and to bring our full authentic self and to be committed once we are assigned to a cohort. Thank you so much. And in the interest of time, we'll jump right into our first trainer. Robin will be taking us through Building Trust, our first session. So Robin, karibu sana. And thank you so much,
Thank
Alan.
you. Thank you very much, Mercy. Thank you, Alan. I don't know if we'll be able to match Alan's energy, but you're such an inspiration, Alan. And thank you so much for that introduction, and key reminders. I think that you touched on a number of very critical points. I'll just share a very quick story. This week, within my organization, we're trying to have like pre-briefing sessions on how to mentor other colleagues. And when I talked of G4G and the different models which, we focus on, everybody was like, oh my God, you guys are so structured. So I was like, oh, wow, it's good to hear this positive feedback, because these models really guide, the kind of mentorship we do that is impactful for the girls. And I would say it has had a huge impact on me. So warm welcome to everybody. My name is Robin, and we'll be focusing on building trust. There's nothing more important than, having trust. So in anything that we do, be it friendship, be it just you and your daughter, you and your son, trust is the basis, the foundation for anything that kicks off in life. If you just reflect a little bit, and think about it, trust and a safe space. And Alan has used that word. I think I was counting and lost count of how many times she used that word, in her opening. So, we'll in this model as mentors, and as Alan has reiterated, you're looking at trying to establish a foundation with the mentees in the cohort that you're mentoring, how they can open up to you freely, how you share, and the story, your authenticity is the bottom line to this. The story you share with the mentees, kind of sets the basis for which they'll open up to you, the energy that will come through in the sessions that you're holding on, and a critical part of that aspect and the objective, of that particular aspect is for them to create a village, around them, how the space is defined, to establish this relationship or to be able to open up and share their stories, and also the networks which they do form. In these three aspects, I would tell you, there's nothing more more consoling than accepting that you have a free space to open up. When I joined G4G, and through a friend, what happened was that, I was really struggling in my workspace, as a mom that was returning from work, really struggling. And I met a fellow G4G. I'd never heard of G4G before. A fellow G4G lady in my workspace who told me, why not join Girls for Girls? And I asked her, what is Girls for Girls? And then she opened up to me and said, it would really boost your morale. And I thought, the first session I attended, I thought this was a space for me to just open up. And by the time I finished attending the first, training session, I think it was the mentors training session, and then on to mentorship, I literally was in tears, because I had never had a space where I could really share my story, my journey and the challenges I faced, in that period of my life. So finding that safe space and an environment where I could be able to open up without any judgment is very important. And that's what we should have at the back of our mind, when we are talking or we are relating with the mentees. Let them feel safe and let them open up. As Alan has said, you're not there to lecture anybody, you're not there to instill, but, be that listener, a good listener, but at the same time, be able to provide some level of guidance that they can trust you and come back to you, and the conversation just keeps flowing. So this rhymes with the key principle around trusting yourself. Also, do you trust yourself? I always relate this to the power of positive thinking. Do you think this is doable? Because if you don't believe in yourself, of course, how do you believe in others to help them, or how do you support others? So you work on yourself to be able to work on others to support others, So trusting others, I know that's a key challenge, particularly with women. The story goes around that, we are not supportive of each other. But the Sisters Creed, it's a strong one for me. That's the one that always resonates in my mind. You know, think positive about somebody. At the same time, you know, you have that backing, that always think about your sister instead of talking about her, but support her, uphold her, and encourage her. It's very key, and very key. And for me, that's what G4G has, you know, impacted in my life. I just hold on to the Sisters Creed at all times, and I know that I have a safe space to go to. It's always important to reiterate that to the mentees. And then trusting the process. We are all different. We have a different dynamic of mentees that we would be mentoring at some point, you know, understanding the dynamics. Are they of a certain age group? Are they of the youthful group where, you know, they are using a lot more of social media? They have their own terminology or words which they use. Try to relate, find something to relate, so that also there's that rapport and that relationship that you're building with them in the course of the mentoring process, you know. And in the process, everybody, you know, has their own journey and their own, you know, a ladder of growth. So it's very important to make the mentees understand that bit, you know. There are different methods that you would want to employ when you're carrying out this particular session of building trust. You know, the first one is about, if you know that you know somebody who is strong, an inspirational speaker within your circles or your networks, you can, you know, rely on them to come and share something with the cohort or the mentees. Remember, it's about story sharing impact. What will impact these people? I always look up to a role model. I mean, just listening to Alan this morning, I'm like, wow, I don't know how she does it, but the positive spirit in her mind keeps her running. And that's what also motivates me, you know. If she can do it, you can do it. I often tell my girls at home, there is no word in our dictionary as I can't. You can, you just have to put it up here that you can do it. So, you know, trying to employ all of that in the process of it. And then there's also, you know, experiential learning. You know, they could break out in groups and share experiences. You never know what you can get from somebody that can impact your life. You know, just talking to somebody. If I wasn't speaking to my colleague or opened up that day to my colleague, I wouldn't have known about G4G probably at the time I joined. So those are things that we look up to, you know, in terms of mentoring or, you know, sharing in the different circles. And I think one other critical thing that I wanted to raise was that sometimes being a new mentor, you fear, you know, you want to be over perfect, or you want to make sure that that session is very perfect. There's nothing like perfection. Go with the flow, go with your heart, share out, you know, and be able to make sure that you're creating that rapport, as we've said over and over. I don't know if we have, Messi, if we do have like breakout rooms. I want us to break out a little bit now and just have a bit of sharing among ourselves. And what I would like us to do is, be it a new mentor, because I know even though you say you're new to G4G, you must have mentored in one way or the other in your different, you know, spaces in life. It might be your children, it might be, you know, a friend. Bring that on, bring that hat on, and let's just share a little bit, you know, about what works well, you know, in terms of building trust in a circle, in this G4G framework and this model. What works well, what doesn't work well, and what you do recommend. So we would have 10 minutes, depending on how many of us are in each group, just to have that discussion. But first, I would strongly recommend that you nominate a volunteer who would report back once you finish this discussion, and somebody who would equally just type for us in the chat a summary of your discussion, because we use this material ever so often, you know, to update the G4G material, and also, you know, to ensure that we are always aligned with the changing context every now and then. So we would break out. Messi, you guide me on how many rooms we do have and how many people will be in a room. 10 minutes maximum.
So Velma will be sharing the breakout rooms. So Velma, please guide us on the same.
Alan has something to say, I think so.
Yeah, no, thanks so much, Robbie. Let me just also emphasize, sisters, this is just to test how our circles run. Remember, we mentor in circles. We don't mentor individually, though, of course, there's always a follow-up. Our model as Girls for Girls is around circles. So breaking you up into small spaces. And these days, because of online mentoring, a lot of our mentoring is also online. So when we break you up into small spaces, it's to sort of emulate how the circle will work. It's just to get to know each other. You only have 10 minutes, but in the real circles, you have 1 hour. So these 10 minutes is really just 1 minute each, just quickly while you're there, explain what you're there. And then together, if you have time, you can create a circle name, because that's what we do, and norms. These allow these little villages to grow so that even after they leave G4G, these girls and women keep saying, oh my God, my Flying Eagles group, they are there for me. When I have a problem, I go to them. So it's just to emulate how the circle will work in real life. And the main thing is just how it would feel if you're actually doing it in real life, online or in person. Some countries are now back to person meetings, but some are still very much online. So really 10 minutes, if each one speaks for 1 minute and you have a mentor lead who really takes the role of a mentor and guides the team, you should be okay to really share something about why you're here, and the power of telling your story in 1 minute. It's not a whole monologue. It's just 1 minute to tell your story.
Exactly. Yeah. And any recommendations that you may have? Yeah.
I think Velma is splitting us up into groups. I don't know, Velma, how you've done it, whether it's going to be for everyone to go at once. Yeah. Please join your groups.
Yes. So ladies, there's a join breakout room link that is on your screen. Please click on it, click on join, and you'll be able to join your circle. We have a couple of us that are still on the main session. Belinda, Bokani, Joanne, Pakama, please join your various groups. Catherine as well. Sarah, Tahira, Sakani, Masho. Please just click on the pop-up that's on your screen. Let us know if you're experiencing any trouble, and we'll be happy to guide.
Joyce Fortunate needs a link to join a group, so just put her back in a group.
Okay.
And what Velma could do, she could make some of us co-hosts so that we support with letting people in.
Okay, I'm doing that just now.
So make a few of us co-hosts. Robin, you should join a group if possible.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. So I have a group here, so I was wondering, should I just leave and join you? Yeah.
Yes, please.
Okay, fantastic.
But when you
Thank
come
you.
back, only do 1 or 2 groups. The rest can put in the chat.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Angela, do you want to join a group or? I think Betty can't join. Domiso. Is non-Domiso on or not? Okay, so for the catch-up, what we are going to do, the group pullbacks only 2 sessions, and then we will go straight after this into courageous leadership. We'll ask for comments, of course. Make sure you always ask are there questions, comments, and then we go into courageous leadership. Then after courageous leadership, we can do, because it will be 1.5 hours by then, we can do a 5-minute break.
Okay.
Or a stretch, and then you put music. But whenever you put music, or like now we have to stop recording. I don't know who is in charge.
Velma, please stop recording.
Just pause.
Pause, yeah.
And even when you're playing music, you have to pause.
You're up.
So very quickly, we have you have just about a minute to share what you discussed in your room, so that we can give another minute to another team, and then we delve back to other things.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Eve Marshall, and like I said, I'm a communication specialist. In our group, we quickly discussed that, in order to, be able to reach out to as many girls, as many women as possible, we all have like the same sort of vision of having to support each other as women, encouraging each other. But also we noticed that it is about someone having that courage, the courage to step out of your shell, and the courage to now wake up and say, I can do this. it's not about maybe because I'm a woman or because I have children or because, I'm always maybe the backseat. So it's about taking that courage to step up and, bring change to the society. And also maybe lastly was that everybody seems to be wanting to do something besides being, some of us have been mentees before. So we are thinking, so what next? Should we just, be mentees and then keep it, in our shelves, but also be able to get on to the next step, become mentors, and also reach out to as many girls and women as possible, because I mean, everybody has the will and the power to, touch our lives and also bring that difference. Yeah. So
Thank
that
you
was
so
in
much.
a nutshell what we mentioned.
Thank you so much. The willpower to touch lives, the willpower to hold another woman's hand. Any other group that would like to share? 1 minute.
Hi, I can go.
Thank you.
My name is Bokani and I'm from Botswana. Sorry for how I look. It's 3 a.m. where I am. I'm actually not in my country right now. But in our group, we were just sharing about the importance of holding space for everyone, because our mentees, we meet them at different points, and even in that journey of developing and growing, and also us as the mentors, we're in different places and spaces. So it's just about holding spaces for everyone as they navigate how they want to go about this journey, and realizing that because everybody is at different points, it's important to, what we did in our group was to break the group further down into smaller groups, not like break it up, but to assign an even smaller number of girls to each mentor, so that those who are not ready to open up in the larger group can still have the space and the option to open up maybe to one mentor separately and discuss and open up in a smaller group. So that's what we found was really working for us, and just, supporting one another and holding space.
That's a
Thank
step
you.
further. Thank you so much for sharing. It's always about assessing the situation, coming up with different strategies of how best you can really impact another lady's life, another girl, just to make sure that, as you say, holding space and bringing them, along the journey as we move along. So I think, for the rest of you who have, discussed and have a few ideas, please put them in the chat. We would really greatly appreciate to have all of the feedback and your sharing, so that we can use that, as I reiterated. Along the line, please just keep typing and putting them in the chat. One thing I know Alan kept talking about at the beginning was, the norms, and the principles that we hold as G4G. So in the process of mentoring, always having that at the back of the mind to kind of, guide the conversations and the sessions that we are having with the mentees. So with that, I don't know if anybody has any question. You have, Mercy, do I have a few minutes to take questions and answers?
Yes, you do. Feel
Yeah.
free to raise your hand or post on
Yeah.
the chat box.
We want to hear your voices as well, so please just, open your mic and ask your question so that we can clarify any doubts you do have in mind. I don't think I can see everybody, but
maybe as we wait for the questions, and ladies,
yeah.
please, we encourage you, because you remember you're going to be holding these spaces online like Robin is. So we really celebrate her. But just want to emphasize one thing. This module is the most important in setting that tone right for the girls to feel they can trust. Remember, they have their own fears. They want to be doctors, they want to be teachers, they want to be nurses, they want to save the world, but they are scared to start those dreams. So if they cannot trust us in this space, how can they trust themselves? And that's why she took you through the framework, how they can build trust in themselves, start to ask those questions about who am I? What do I want to do? So please, this one is the key module. You cannot mentor if they don't trust you. So how do they trust you? You see, Robin has put on her camera. She's asking questions. She's engaging. This module allows you to actually have that, to start building that relationship. When I went to Niger the first time, they told me, Alan, our girls don't open up. They don't speak. Our culture doesn't allow us to speak. Let me tell you, as Robin said, before the end of the first module, it was a physical space before COVID, thankfully. everyone was crying tears. Everyone, the mentors were crying, the girls were crying, we were all crying. And that's how powerful Girls for Girls can be. Because these girls are bottling up so much. They are bottling up so much. And even women, and even ourselves, we know, we always bottle up stuff because we don't have where to share it. So please, your role as a mentor, as Robin has done, is to just try and hold that space and to probe. Even you can ask people no questions, and if no one is coming in, try to draw them in. And they may not do so in the first module, but hopefully as you keep going, they draw forward. And so things like putting your camera on, things like asking questions, things like using the chat function, allow you to slowly start building trust and to show them that without them opening up to the other members in the group, they will not move forward, which is what stops us even at the workplace. You think everyone is going to steal your ideas. You think everyone will talk about you. So you stay alone and then you don't grow. So yeah, I thought I would emphasize that.
Thank you, Alan. And there's this whole aspect of confidentiality, as the Sisters Creed said, just holding each other up and not talking, because it's a common thing in the minds of women that, oh, if I say my story, it will be replicated somewhere else, will be used or be talked about. Giving that reassurance is very important. And I think G4G is a safe space where you could share your stories and be sure that it stays there. Alan, I have a quick question for you, even though, I'm running this particular model. The aspect of using tools, in the course of the sessions to kind of facilitate circles or feedback. One tool that I've realized that it doesn't really reveal who is sharing what is the Mentimeter. I know that we're in the digital age. Would you encourage the Mentimeter to kind of dig out, from mentees if they're not opening up, or do you still recommend that people speak up, in terms of identifying themselves?
The Mentimeter is powerful. We use it as well here on G4G. But as you move on, you want people to learn that they can trust. So you want them to be able to create those spaces that they will know they'll be able to trust. But in the beginning, it's Mentimeter to just, if people are not speaking, just tell us what you're thinking. So use tools like Mentimeter, absolutely. But hopefully by module 3, 4, because if you don't share, imagine if we are talking about negotiations and none of us is sharing a difficult negotiation we have had. How are we going to learn? You're going to make it theoretical and just say in this PowerPoint. But let me also talk about the factor of age. When you're mentoring, for you mentors, some of you are going to mentor girls between 15 and 25, then 25 and 35, then older women. Each group is different. When you're mentoring women in the 40s, it's so hard for them to open up because they have been beaten up. The young girls of 15 to 25 normally want to talk, they're bubbly. The women in the 30s, the world is starting to hit them, so they're like, so you have to see how you deploy different tools for different age groups. And remember, you talked about the process, trust the process. A woman in the 40s starts feeling, gosh, I've missed my opportunities. I'm not longer any good. I have nothing. Whereas the young girl in the 15s to 25 is so excited, she knows she can conquer the world. And then the one in the 30s, the reality is setting in. Gosh, I have children. Maybe I'm not yet married. I don't yet have children. I want to have children, but there's no man. The dreams that society is pushing her own dreams, everything is clashing. She's confused. So you also have to be cognizant of which age group you're working with as you're helping them to navigate that difficult process.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Alan. I think my session is done. Thank you all for engaging, and we continue to participate in the next sessions. Thank you. Over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Robin. And ladies, applause to Robin for the amazing session that she has been able to share with us, and some key takeaway points. You cannot mentor if you're not trusted. Understand the different age groups and hold space for everyone. And there's something, Robin, you had mentioned on going with the flow. And it reminded me of a mantra that we have at G4G that says, trust the process, do it afraid. And that speaks to the next module that you're going to be going through. And so Bonolo, welcome as you take us through courageous leadership. Flowers. Karibu Bonolo, if you can hear us. Flowers, ladies. Let's continue keeping the chat box engaged. Bonolo, let us know if you can hear us.
We have Bonolo online.
I am trying to go through the participants. I'm not too sure.
I'll take it if she isn't here and just quickly speak about courageous leadership.
Great.
Okay. Unless I can see Bokami, but it's not. She's not Bonolo. Neo, do you know if Bonolo is joining? Can you reach out to her? but I'll take the module. Okay, ladies.
I haven't spoken to her.
You haven't spoken to her. Okay, let me take you very quickly through courageous
but I can
leadership,
reach out.
because this is a powerful module. And I know you've been sitting for 1 hour. We'll quickly go for a break after this module, but I thought we should talk about it after you've built trust. Now, remember, I talked about courageous leadership being about that leadership that is personal, that is not positional. I often tell people, you don't need permission. No one gave me permission to start Girls for Girls. Did I get permission from anyone? Did I go and tell people, you people, I'm going to start Girls for Girls? You know, I need teacher, you tick. No, I started Girls for Girls. And likewise, many of you have started things. Angie is an executive coach. She didn't get permission. She told us, this is what I want to do. I want to go for it. But many times our girls, our women have these dreams and they feel they need permission. They feel they can't do it until they have $1 million. They feel they can't do it until they have done all the PhDs. No, I will only do it when I have done these things. You know, they feel they need to do so much before they can take the first step. And I told you that this module is about taking action. It's about leadership that does not require you to have a title. It's about seeing what is wrong in your community, in your society, and saying, I want to make a difference. And so we try to encourage young women to say, who are those role models that you admire? And trust me, in the beginning, it was so sad. Every time you put out this question, even a girl in the deep rural village will have heard of, let's say, Beyonce. That's whom they'll talk about, you know, because the magazines, you remember these Hellos, Cosmopolitan, these magazines really spoiled us, because the women we saw, the role models we saw were always those foreign ideal women. Very rarely did you see women like us. Very rarely did you see us being put out as the role model who can then be someone that they can follow or aspire to be. And so this is a powerful one where we try to encourage girls about their role models. And sisters, I want to ask you right now, who is your role model? Put in the chat. Who is your role model and what are the qualities you admire? And it's okay if you admire Oprah, but put the qualities. What do you admire about her? Just very quickly, put in the chat, who is your role model and what do you qualities you? And I'll tell you about two of my role models. Two fearless women. There's a woman called Miriam Matembe. She's a lawyer in Uganda. She has fought for so much. She's one who said you must castrate men who rape. You know, she is so, what do you call it? These people who just don't fear. She says, at times you even think, oh my God, she needs to first refine what she's saying. She will say what she wants. She stood up and said, any man who rapes, we must castrate. I love her for her fearlessness, because so many times I'm scared to say the right thing or to stand up. I mean, you can see all of us are seeing what's happening with Israel and Palestine, and many of us are fearing to stand up. Maybe we are being funded by the Israelis. Maybe, you know, maybe we'll be seen to be an activist. So many times we fear to stand up for what is right, and we fear to speak out. I love Miriam because she stands up. She speaks. She dares to say things that many of us would fear to say. And I've taken a lot of courage from her. The second lady I love is called Winnie. Winnie Byanyima. She's the head of UNAIDS, a global body fighting HIV/AIDS. Winnie is a super sister. She's one who has a heart for women. She has a heart for sisters. But most importantly, Winnie has dared to take on very difficult topics. Very difficult topics. She has talked about tax poverty. She has talked about the rich, taxing the rich to be able to, you know, she talks about greed. She used to work with Oxfam. She has tackled difficult things of culture. In our culture, you have to kneel down for men in many of the Ugandan cultures. I struggle with that. Trust me, I'm a lawyer, and then I come from a tribe where we don't kneel. And then I was married into a tribe where they kneel. I would struggle. You would see me, I would really struggle to kneel down, because I'm like, why should I kneel before a fellow man? I really would struggle. And Winnie has talked about these difficult questions of culture. She has challenged culture norms. I love her. She's my sister. I've walked with her. We've partied with her, but I always get inspired when she takes on these topics that at times I'm feeling, okay, who am I to take on these taboo conversations, tradition, norms, religion? She does it all. So sisters, let me look at some of the ladies you've highlighted as your role models. Let me see, I'm seeing flowers. Let me see, who is your role model? Oh, Gloria, thank you. My role model is Ellen. She's vibrant, passionate, daring. She loves dancing. Thank you so much, Gloria Faith. I love dancing, ladies. In fact, in G4G, we introduced Zumba because I used to be a Zumba instructor. So for those who do physical classes, we normally start with some dancing. And I know South Africa has that vibe. They really dance a lot in their model, in their programs. Lois from Kenya, my mom, she's authentic, bold, courageous. Many, Hilda from Tanzania, and Hilda has just herself completed a cohort. She did it afraid. She says her mother is her role model, courageous, daring. For many of us, our mothers, our grandmothers, our aunties, because these are the women who have been around us. You know, they never give up, as Eva says, Mashu Eve. She doesn't give up, my mom. She's daring. Even amidst issues, she has put her foot down. And Cheryl Sandberg, I know Cheryl, she really talked about leaning in when you're in these male-dominated worlds. Just ask me. I lead a largely male team, but also female, very highly technical. Can be quite challenging. So many of you are putting your mother, and this is it for many young women and girls. We look up to our mothers because they're the ones before us. If I talked about my mother, I would sleep here. She raised us, you know, with a civil service career salary. My father paid school fees. She would work. She would travel here to Kenya on the bus 24 hours to buy materials to sell back in Uganda. And that's how she was able to pay school fees when my dad was a civil servant. So I can't even tell you, when people look at me and my sisters and my brother, we are hardworking, we are passionate. My mom does that. She taught us one thing: your home is never small enough. It's your heart that is small. So we lived in an apartment, but at times you'd find 20 people in that house. 20 people. She taught us the power of giving, the power of opening up our homes. These are the role models we have. We have to sing their stories. Likewise, you two sisters, each of you here on this call are a role model for so many, but you don't know. You don't know, because so many times we don't think we are that good. But I always tell people, my story is good enough to put on the page of Cosmopolitan, on the face of Cosmopolitan. So is yours. Your story is good enough to put anywhere and to share with others, because you have walked your path. You have walked your path to be where you are, and it's only right that you share it. So in this module, we are blessed that we have a video of a professor called Nancy Cohen. She teaches at the Harvard Business School. She's one of the top professors there. She has studied leadership, over 3 centuries of leadership. She has looked at leaders from across the spectrum. And she said that one thing that distinguished leaders she has talked about is this whole thing about leadership that doesn't have these titles. It's about that leadership that is from a place of passion, of purpose, finding your purpose. So many times, many of our young women, ourselves, even me, I turned 50 recently, you find we don't yet know our purpose. And it's not bad. What she's saying is navigate point to point. So when you're mentoring these young girls, many times they'll say, I want to be a doctor, but that's just a what. Many times, some of them don't even know. You ask, what do you want to do? They don't know. Or even at 30, you wake up and saying, what am I here on this earth? And you realize that because we work like machines, you wake up in the morning, you go to work, the day ends, you go back the next day, you go to work, you're doing work, you're doing a job, but is it your passion? Is it your purpose? For many of us to find our purpose, we really need to navigate. I would urge you all to watch Professor Nancy Cohen's video. It is powerful. She talks about finding your purpose. And it's not a purpose of you wake up and like, who is this in the Bible where the burning bush and God said, go save my people? Is it Abraham? It's not that purpose of Mark Zuckerberg where he wakes up and creates Facebook, because it is powerful. But if you look at Mark Zuckerberg, perhaps he has taken over 10, 15 years walking a journey to get to Facebook, you know? But for us, we only see Facebook and we think, wow, I'm going to create it overnight. No. So she talks about navigating point to point, but she also talks about those pitfalls that we face that people never talk about. When you see my CV, you don't see the pitfalls and the failures and the interviews I never managed and the scholarships that didn't go through and the things that didn't work. So we have to be authentic. We have to ensure that we share our story, how it is, not just the good parts, but also the parts where we are failed, because it's through failure that we learn, you know? And she talks about navigating and ensuring you don't fall through the cracks. So many girls and women you're going to talk to are battling with depression, are battling with alcoholism, are battling with drugs. We have seen suicides. I remember once we started in, I think, which country, and by module 2, one of our mentees committed suicide. It was one of the saddest black days for us. We have seen suicide committed around the region among mentees, mentors, because depression is real. So we are encouraging you. Finding the purpose allows you to have this mission in life that I'm going to create this, I'm going to do this, but you don't get it as a big bang. And her framework talks about navigating point to point. One of the other things we have in G4G that is so powerful, so powerful, is, we call it doing it afraid. I've told you that I've traveled and seen girls in hundreds of places. Every girl has a dream. Every single one, even us, all of us here on this call have a dream, but we are often held back. So we tell people, by the way, for me to speak here, it's not that I'm not afraid. I'm afraid, but I'm doing it. I'm doing it. So doing it is afraid is a phrase that resonates with so many of our girls. All our role models you've talked about here are doing it afraid. Every day they wake up, they do it afraid. The other phrase that we talk about quite a lot is courage doesn't have to roar. Many people think that courage has to be loud, it has to be out, but there are so many introverts, there are so many quiet people that are courageous. It's not that you're speaking about it that you're courageous. It's that ability to take action, you know? It is that ability to move. So we always tell even the introverts, because a lot of times I have spoken to young women and they say, but me, I'm 32, I'm in the office, I can't talk. They see me for what I am doing. They say that I work hard. No one is seeing you. So we encourage them to say that even as an introvert, you can be courageous, take action and move your agenda forward. Otherwise, 20 years down the road, you'll still remain in the same position and then you'll wonder what happened. So courage doesn't have to roar. There are other principles that Nancy Cohen talks about. She talks about growing your village. You've heard us talk about a village. A village is a circle of friends, of women who share your purpose, your vision, your values. I've told you about my village in G4G. I started alone. Can you imagine where G4G, would be if I had done it alone? If I had done everything myself, if I had kept the passion to myself, the vision to myself. But I'm so glad that I opened it up. And we call it shared leadership in Girls for Girls. We are all over the world because I allowed others to share that vision. And they too had their own vision and they have grown it and they have taken it to different levels. I am so proud of them. And so in G4G, you'll see people have created initiatives, fireside chat, book club, women entrepreneurs. We have platforms that are scaling the world on their own rights, just because we have created a village that says we can do it together. We can go further together. Then there's the one where she talks about invest in information gathering years. Many young people, you're going to talk about to these mentees, even the women in the 30s, the 40s, we cry, we are complaining, but we are not investing in information gathering. And she's saying like the way Moses wandered in the desert, or like the way you can see who is this leader, Gandhi. Gandhi for 40 years was just navigating here and there before he became the powerful Gandhi we know. Those years, don't take them for granted. They are gathering years. As long as you're doing something, moving you slowly towards your goal. And that's where we tell girls, don't be on Snapchat all that time. Don't be on TikTok all that time. Use some of that time. If you say you want to be a doctor, have you really studied about what doctors do? If you want to be a fashion person, have you studied about fashion? Have you read, the ups and downs of fashion, how you can navigate? So it's these things that I'm encouraging you to share with the mentees. And then finally, keep your eye on the big space. At times, today I woke up on one of my groups and the lady said, I'm weathering a storm. And at times when you're weathering a storm, you're just looking down. And unfortunately for us also in our world, guess where we're always looking? In our phones. In our phones, on WhatsApp, on Snapchat, on this and that. You can find, if you're tracking your time, you find that you spend 5 to 10 hours a day. 5 to 7 at times on WhatsApp and social media. And so we are telling people, keep your eye. At times when you put your head out, you're going to see that the world is so beautiful and there's so much in it for us. So this module on courageous leadership is just about inspiring. It's about getting these girls to know they can do it. Yes, you're afraid, but you can do it. Look at your role model, your mother. Didn't she raise you? Didn't she do it? You think she was never afraid? You think she never had the money? But here you are today because your mother did it afraid. That is the whole thing that Robin was talking about, the I can't mentality. Because for many of us, we feel until we have that $1 million, I'll not be able to start my clinic. Before I do this, I'll not. I told you with G4G, we started with nothing. I started with 5 sisters who worked with me, and now we have thousands of mentors like you who are working with us. Just because we said we don't need permission, we are going to do what we want to do to fulfill our dream. So sisters, that's courageous leadership. In this module, you start seeing girls taking action. And I'll finish. I know Mercy is shooting daggers at me because of the time, but I'll finish in one story. Let me give you one story. In this module, you start seeing girls take action. The girls who came in timid in module 1, who are not speaking, by now they are opening up. They are starting to share. You've all watched Professor Nancy Cohen's video. You're all talking about what it means to do it afraid. And people are sharing their stories of, oh my God, I didn't think I could do this, but here I am. Let me give you one story of a lady I met in 2019. I have told this story often because it inspired me so much. Diana lost her husband. I think she was 35. The husband died in a very horrific car crash. 1 month later, friends told her, this was August, friends told her, why don't you join Girls for Girls? You will find a space where you will be enveloped, you will be surrounded. She joined Girls for Girls, and I remember I went to speak to them that month. I think even I had a very bad cold, maybe it was pre-COVID cold. But I went to speak to them, and I remember it was a small circle. This lady called Joanne had started a circle of family friends and people who wanted to be mentored, and she was one of those. So I went and sat in this circle and I shared. Joanne had come, Diana had come in not knowing what she wanted, but she was sad. Imagine 35, you've lost your husband. Who is a widow at 35? Most times we know widows to be 80, 70. Now you're a widow at 35. What happens to your life? She came into G4G. By module 2, she started saying, I think I know what I want to do. There are many young widows like me who are feeling hopeless. They have nowhere to go. She started a circle called Brides of Christ. Let me tell you, as I speak now, there are hundreds of women in Brides for Christ. Isn't that taking action? She realized that there were so many young widows in their early 30s, in their 20s, who did not know where to go. And every time you went to older widows, they told you, you will get used. Don't worry, that is life. But she wanted to feel, to thrive, to survive, to celebrate her husband and celebrate life and to see what's next for her. Brides for Christ is now over 100 women. They meet, they share stories, they laugh together, they celebrate. But she didn't stop there. She also thought of the older widows whose land was being taken, whose property was being taken by their relatives. And she started, in her husband's name, a foundation called Howard's Foundation. And I was so privileged to be able to give into that foundation. I helped her register it and start it up as a foundation. And I also connected that to the women lawyers who provide legal aid to women like these who are widowed in their 60s, and they tell them, go with your children back to your father, go to your family. You know, this land is for our clan. And so she's doing quite well on both fronts. That is the action we are talking about. And we have seen so many like Diana around the world taking action to change their communities. And sisters, this is the girls and women you're going to mentor. They just need you to give them that helping hand and to show them that it's doable. So let me stop there and ask for questions and ask for feedback. That is our module on courageous leadership. You must watch the video. You must, look at the content. It is powerful. Let me take questions, comments before we break for like 5 minutes. Any questions, comments? Any questions? Anything that has touched you as a mentor? I want to hear from the mentors. Anything? Who is there? Irene, I can see you. So many of you have shared in the chat about your mothers, about, Tina, about the Speaker of Uganda. Pakam, I see you smiling about Moses in the Bible. And Juko, wow, I'm seeing my friends in here, people I know. Mamo, Gethy. So any comments, any issues about, thanks Lois, about the beautiful sharing and inspiration from Sakani. Ladies, let me tell you, when you do courageous leadership well, you're going to leave your mentees so inspired to go and change the world. They will leave that session feeling they can take on anything. Okay, the story of starting the widows. And it's not only widows. In South Africa, we had a young girl who started a soup. At the university, people were starving, students were starving. She started a whole soup, what do you call it? And then they started collecting food for people. Imagine, she didn't need permission. She just said, my classmates are dying of hunger. What can we do? She didn't need permission from the professors. She just started. Yes, Sarah, we'll hear from you and then we'll take a quick break. Sarah? Sarah from Uganda. Are
Sarah,
you there?
Yeah.
I think her camera, she said she had problems with her voice. Anyway, hopefully she'll put it in the chat. So ladies, let us take a quick break. Sorry, back to you, Mercy. We'll break and then we'll go for the exciting session on art of communication, but I don't see Vanessa on. Let's see if we can reach her. So over to you, Mercy.
Thank you so much, Alan, for that inspiring session and for the nudges, even for the mentors as they prepare to mentor. Indeed, it is reverse mentorship. So at this point, you're going to take a 5-minute break. Velma, you can put on some music. Let's stretch. Let's grab a cup of water or tea or coffee and see us at 11:41. Kindly don't leave the session. You can just mute yourself and grab your drink of choice. So 5 minutes and we'll be able to jump right into the next session. So Velma, over to you.
Velma, you can stop recording and then some music, please.
Yes. And please feel free to continue typing on the chat box itself.
Let's see your beautiful faces. I know many of you are not talking. Let's see that. Let's pop on for 1 minute and we'll do one of the G4G activities that we normally do. Just pop them on, pop them on. I'm seeing Ndumiso, and she's coming up shortly after me. I'm seeing you, Ngozi. I'm seeing you, Lois. Oh my goodness, all these amazing faces. I'm seeing you, Eve. Eve, I thought that name was from South Africa. What are you doing in Uganda, Mashu? You know? I'm seeing you, Cynthia, Victoria, Catherine, oh my God, Priscilla, Joanne, oh my God, you ladies all look so beautiful. I thought you'd have headscarves on and you'd be cooking, but you're rocking it up and you're there shining. And Sarah, we can see you. I hope your camera works. You told us your camera is not working. So ladies, this is how we greet in G4G. When you're going to your mentors, we try to, the first time I went to mentor, we're mentoring, we piloted G4G globally at a school in Uganda called Mary Reparatrix. And I went to mentor, and these were girls they were 15 to 18. I know you go with pearls, you know how we dress. I had pearls. So of course, if you're going to talk to them like also serious, they're also going to look at you and they will be sitting like this. I don't know if you can see me. They will fold their arms like this. So we had to learn to be engaging. And so one of our Kenyan friends, Stella, she's been one of our super mentors. She showed us how to greet, and this is how we greet in G4G. So put your hands up. So this is how we greet. If you're going, especially in a young group, so it's like, hi, hi, with a big smile, hi. And we saw the girls responding, you know, and you can also put it with vibe, and you can be like, you know, hi, 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 hi. So we had to learn to adapt, especially for the physical sessions. If you're mentoring young women, find something that works. If you're mentoring older women, we learned to give flowers because often we don't get appreciated. That's why we give flowers in G4G, because many times you walk into a space and you're not appreciated. And so we want to appreciate people we work with. And so there's so many ways you can do something that works for you. If you're a poet, use your poetry. If you love singing, you can sing. If you love dancing, do what works for you as a mentor. That's what I wanted to share. So I know not many of us put on our cameras, but I just wanted at least to see you and to just say, we are all here in this space, and I'm so glad that you're with us 1.5 hours into the session, almost 2 hours. So I'll very quickly take you through the art of communication, which is our first skills session. It's our first skills module. And this, I remember I told you, why do we need communications? Why? And so I'll ask you very quickly to put in the chat, what do you fear about communications? What are your fears? What are your concerns? What do you fear about communications? Maybe you've been asked to make a PowerPoint to present to the leadership of your company, you know? Or maybe you're going to speak before all the young members of this, or maybe you've been invited somewhere. Do you have any fears around communications? Any fears? I'll tell you one fear that a friend told me. She told us she feared she was boring. Every time she stood up to speak, that's when people go for the tea break. That's when people walk out to fill their cups of coffee. And so she kept saying, am I boring? Am I being boring? And then one time she stood up to speak and her boss yawned. You can imagine she never spoke for the next year. And another sister of mine, she stood up at the law school. She was one of the few girls at the law school at Makerere. And she stood up to speak, and the guys said, look, what do you know? You don't know anything. This was in her first year. And she never spoke again for 3 years. And then at the end of the 3rd year, she realized she was one of the top 10 in the class. She was clever. She had something to say. Let me tell you, she said she never stopped talking after that. So many of you are putting in your fears, Joanne being inadequate, Eve, the fear to make mistakes or to wow the crowd, not being understood, Lois, very true. At times you speak and say, do they get me? Are they understanding what I'm saying? You know, miscommunication from Vera. I fear how to start. How to start. And that is a big one. Many people fear to start that they never start. They keep quiet. Yet you have so much to say. You have a lot to tell the world. You have so much to share with everyone. But they fear. Gloria, fear of judgment. Communications being ambiguous. That's Fatuma. Cynthia, if the message shared shall be understood. Victoria, eloquency. Pakama, the fear of not being able to answer all questions. We all share fears. Let me tell you, I've stood at global conferences. I've spoken to presidents. I've spoken to, all around the world. I've spoken. Most recently, I was invited by the government of the Emiratis, UAE, and economists. The economist which writes those articles and everyone is reading and feeling, wow, they invited me to speak in front of a global audience in Dubai 3 weeks or so ago. I always get scared. I'm like, okay, what am I going to say? But let me tell you, this module on the art of communication, it is not going to give you the content. It is going to tell you that this is something we can do. This is something all of us can do. And we have an amazing professor at Harvard who really told us so much about the art of communication, Professor Timothy McCarthy, and he shared with us a video. So you have that video available. It's only 7 minutes, sharing about the art of communication. We don't call it PR. We don't call it public relations. We are not talking about how you should dress and what in this module. We are talking about the power of having a message and passing it on, which is called the art of communication. What are you communicating? And so this for us is centered around our stories, believe it or not. This is centered around our stories. Many times when people speak, they think they have to give all the topmost information. They want to give slides and slides of data and numbers. These are, for instance, the doctors. When we mentor with young women doctors, they say, but if I'm going to speak at a scientific thing, I have to give all the data. For instance, if I'm talking about HIV, talk about all the people who have died, all the people who are sick. I'm saying, yes, but you can also talk about it in a different way. You can share both numbers and a story, and you'll have more impact. Just sharing the numbers, yes, it may wow people that 1 million people are getting HIV every morning, but it's not going to bring people to persuade them to join your cause. It's not going to make people give you money to further your. But if you share your story, it could be your story. It could be the story of others, your sister, your friend, or it could be the story of your community, of Ugandans living with AIDS. You get it when I say community. It's of sisters, of women living with AIDS, of Ugandans living with AIDS. That is a powerful story. That is a story that will resonate, that people will remember 5 years. When you think about some of the best speakers, we have all read whose stories. What's her name? The one who talks about Chimamanda. Imagine her power of storytelling. She's writing. The way she writes, the way she narrates, you're able to dig in. It was like I was part of the Biafra war when I read her stories. I've been in Nigeria. I've lived in those communities. She is able to impart on us a message because of the way she writes. So it can be oral, it can be visual, it can be art drawn, it can be written. We are just telling girls, you have a story, share it. So this module is based on a number of principles. We all have these fears, but it's telling you, you can still speak. And we have 3 pillars. You can speak with clarity. You can speak to persuade people to join you. Just remember Muhammad and Jesus Christ, how they persuaded people to join them. You have to be able to persuade people to your cause. If it's environment, if you hate domestic violence, you want to, start something. You see how Diane started the one on the widows, and now she has 100+ women joining her. You have to be able to persuade with your words, and you have to be able to inspire. You have to be able to inspire, and I'll tell you how. This module has a number of principles, and Professor McCarthy talks about it so well, and I hope we get a minute to just practice it. The first is know your audience. So for all of you who are scared about what you're going to say, trust me, know your audience. If I'm coming to speak to you as female mentors wanting to mentor from around the world, I have to know the audience I'm speaking to. That's why I had to tell Velma who has signed up, which countries are we talking about. If I'm going to speak to a trade forum, I have to know the audience. I'll know that there are going to be trade experts in there. So I'll make sure my message resonates. You're not going to use the same thing for different audiences. Your story and what you share of it matters in different spaces. If it's in a space of trade, I'll give you, when I get to the power of stories, I'll tell you about stories I've shared, for instance, in trade forums, global trade forums that resonate. So for me, knowing your audience is so key. It will calm your nerves if you know, okay, I'm going to speak to doctors, or I'm going to speak to lawyers, or I'm going to speak to a group of accountants. It allows you then to shape your narrative around what the expectations of the accountants are. And it allows you to get more comfortable. The second is know the why behind your what. Let me give you an example. In Niger, when I conducted this, I asked the girls, okay, tell me, we always ask the mentees to write a 2-minute speech, to present a 2-minute speech about something. So all of them were speaking, and the speeches were so dry. They had no passion. So one of them wanted to work on bones. There were so many lame people in Niger. Many of them have broken bones. So she was like, there are 10,000 people on the streets of Niger with broken bones. I need to speak to them. So I said, oh, okay, you want to set up an NGO to deal with beggars on the street who have broken bones. She didn't tell me her why. She told me the what. She wanted to set up an NGO to work. So that's how many of the mentees will tell you, I want to be a doctor. So you probe, why? So I probed why. She told the most horrific story. In Niger, when her mother was giving birth to her brother, her baby brother, because he was in breech position, they broke the bones. There's a way the doctor can get in and break the bones so that they're able to pull out the baby. That's what happened to many children who were born in that period in Niger. So as a result, they ended up having so many kids born lame with broken legs, disabled, and many of them found they're on the streets. Because you know what happens in our communities when you have a child that's not able-bodied. Unfortunately, most times you're let out onto the streets, which is a very sad thing. So we all cried. You can imagine the first story where she shared numbers of beggars on the street, and the second story where she shared why she was passionate about starting an NGO for beggars on the street who had broken limbs. Do you see the difference? One story was numbers alone. The second story had one speech just talked about numbers. The second told us about her why she was doing it, because of her brother who had been born like that. And it goes on. Every time you're mentoring these young women, they'll just tell you the what. I want to be a teacher. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a nurse. But they're not telling you the why. Your role is to probe with the why. When they give you their 2-minute speeches, your role is to probe. Are you talking to us as an audience that, are you speaking to us? And why are you doing what you want to do? There's one who wanted to set up a skin oil making thing. She wanted to set up a cosmetic company. It's only when we dug deep that we heard that she had the worst acne. All her friends used to laugh at her. All the students at her school used to laugh at her. So the why behind the what is so important when you're doing the art of communication. Even you, when you're going to speak, all of you who are saying, I'm afraid, I don't know what I'll take about. It is the why. If you're going to talk to a group of accountants and you've heard from them that their expectations are they want to see how they can fit into this global world that does not just look at you as an accountant, but wants you to look at both accounts and say strategy, you will then have to look at, okay, how do you get them there? Both through understanding their needs as an audience, but also looking at the way you share, the part of your story you share. Now, for many of us, people feel that if you're sharing your story in an audience, you're going to share from when you were born. I was born here, then I grew up here, then I went to university here. No, it's the part of your story that resonates with the audience most. I'll give you an example. I was recently, I think a couple of years ago, I was speaking at a global summit in Berlin, and Angela Merkel was one of the people in that summit, in those meetings, and other top leaders. And I was asked to speak about foreign direct investment to Africa and what Germany can do. Germany has an aging population that has saved so much, and they are looking for where to put that money because they cannot absorb it in their economy. It's so rich. They need to invest elsewhere. But unfortunately, foreign direct investment in Africa is falling, and they're not bringing in this money into Africa. And yet they're all fighting about immigration. They're all saying Africans are coming. We have to tighten our border controls. People are dying at the sea. So I told them, guys, I said, look at me. I come from a family. My father had 12 siblings. My mother had 10. Altogether, I have 200 cousins. I am the most educated, and I don't even have a PhD. Only right now, my cousin is on my mother's side has started a PhD. I am the most educated. Only 30% of those 200 cousins have gone to school or have really gone high. Most of them have children already, and they each have 10 children, some of them. My cousins who are my age, some of them have 10 children. So are you seeing the catastrophe? If you're bringing your foreign direct investment and you're investing in mining alone or in natural resources, you're not investing in education. You're not investing in food and agro-processing. You're not investing in jobs. These people are going to come. And right now they're coming on boats, but they're going to start coming in submarines, and they're going to start flying into your country. And you saw how Hamas did it the other day into Israel. They flew. Who could believe they could have created those flying things to fly? I told these people, my cousins are just part of the 1 billion young Africans that are going to be looking for better opportunities. And if the better opportunities are here in Europe, they are going to come. And right now they're doing it on boats, but they're going to come in submarines. I got a standing ovation because I showed through the power of my story that when they talk about these people on the boats, these are people we know. These are people from our communities. And it's because they don't have opportunities. And yet you have huge investments that are locked up in your banks, and you're looking to invest. But even when you invest, you don't want to invest in things that will directly impact these young people. I had to tell you this story to show you how it is powerful. This was a room of leaders from around the world, and they really appreciated what I spoke about. Do you get the power of the story? I could have talked about these 1,000 people who go and die on the water every day. They remain nameless and faceless. But because I gave them a face, they are my cousins, they are my brothers, they are my sisters, it suddenly became different. It suddenly took on meaning. So even all of you who are so scared, you can tell a story and impact others. So the why behind the what is so key. And the values, you can imagine the values. When I told my story, I had to bring out the values about family, about work, about opportunities that resonated and inspired the audience in that room. Hopefully the decisions they took later. Then we always tell young people, and us, all of us when we are making these speeches, make a call to action. Make a call to action. Never leave a space, even if it's a board meeting, even if it's a presentation you're making to your leadership, always end with a call to action. What is a call to action? For instance, if I went to the leadership and have made the problem statement, I've said what, staff are saying there's no restaurant, there's no this, I have to make a call. I have to say, in this purpose, we are now saying, like for that European conversation, I told them what I would ask you to do is invest in sectors that make a difference for young people. That is a call to action. Never leave a space without making a call for action. In that sense, you're persuading, you're drawing people to your cause, you're asking people to join you. So for all of you who have said you have these fears, the fears never go away, but you can manage them with this framework. And please listen to the Art of Communication video. It is powerful. For me, every time I go, if I'm speaking on trade, if I'm speaking on environment, I use this framework and it does not fail me. And trust me, every time I speak, I end up with either standing ovations, or people will come and tell me you are the best speaker, or you are the one who touched me. I will not forget your stories. And it's all because of the power of my story, my community story, and this framework that I learned from Professor McCarthy. So I don't know if we have a minute to hear someone share their story in 1 minute, or to ask questions.
Yeah.
We do?
Yeah.
Okay, does anyone want to volunteer now that I've told you? If you can share anything you're about to present, and we help you to guide you how you can make it, impactful. Anyone wants to go? 1 minute? And Art of Communication is like a muscle. The more you practice, the better you become. I didn't speak like this before. I have had to practice, to engage, to learn how to share and resonate with audiences. Anyone, anything has touched you? Anyone? I already have warning bells to finish. Anyone?
May I say something?
Yes, Joanne.
Hi, thank you very much for that. When you say the power of telling the story, I have a problem with the fact that sometimes we want to tell a story and then want to be pitied, yet there's always two, and then want to be pitied, yet there's always two sides of the story. Because while you talked about having 200 cousins, you did not go into the depths of how deplorable the situation might be or how much the government hasn't helped, but you just painted a general picture for everyone to take away what they felt like telling. So I would think that in this mentorship, teaching us how to be mentors, we would also be taught how to tell stories so that we actually impact, instead of making people feel like, is this person the right person to mentor me? Or actually the mentees starting to feel sorry for the mentor. And therefore, I think the intended goal would not have been achieved.
Thanks so much. And Joanne, that is so powerful. That's why I told you the beginning, clarity, persuasion, inspiration. Your story has to inspire. Yes, you make people sad, but you also bring them back. You see, you can make people sad, people can cry, but you bring them back into the space. I'll give you a story of one that I've really watched many times, Lupita Nyong'o. She was being awarded in Hollywood. You can watch it. It's around 2-3 minutes. And she shared a story of being a black girl among light whites, and she would scrub her skin every morning, thinking she would get whiter, thinking she would get lighter, because always what we thought of as beautiful is white and is light And you have seen colorism in Africa. So everyone in the room cried, but she didn't stop there. She then brought them back to what she has since then done to address her Blackness and to feel that she belongs and that she's there. So as a mentor, your role is not to just make people cry. I've told you of the stories of Niger, where everyone was telling their stories and crying, but to bring people back into that space and say, okay, what do we do with this story? What do we do? And that's why the call to action. Joanne, you heard me talk about the call to action. Even you as a mentor, when you share a story, for instance, you're talking about negotiations or communications, and you share your story of having failed to speak, say, when you were first presented at your workplace. But you talk about how you came back, the options you've since had, the steps you've taken to improve your communications. Do you see? So I totally hear you, and I appreciate that, because if you tell a crying story without bringing the call to action, it doesn't make sense. For instance, when we're working with young women with HIV/AIDS, and we are now in, I think, the third or fourth cohort for HIV/AIDS, I think the fourth. They will they have told their story time and again of how they either contracted or they were born with HIV/AIDS. But they say, look, we just don't want to be pitied. We have agency, we have power in our rights. We want to be able to use this story to make a difference for young adolescent women who are now 25, who are still facing stigma. You imagine if you're telling your boyfriend that I have HIV, they're going to run away. So do you keep quiet and go on with the relationship, yet you want to have children? So they are saying, we want to tell this story not to be pitied, not for people to feel so sorry for us, but for people to help us together to work out solutions. So that is very powerful. The other thing, as a mentor, don't give a linear story. Linear is like, I was born in 1940, then I grew up here, then I went here, then I went to these universities, my secondary school was here. That is a linear story. That's not what we're asking. The power of telling your story is knowing the audience you're speaking to. If you're mentoring a group of 20 to 25-year-olds, you can share your story of your 20s and the challenges you faced, the struggles, but also the opportunities you saw and what that time in your life showed you. I hope that is helpful and clear.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, ladies, I know we have run out of time. If there are no other questions, practice. What we do here is ask mentees to prepare a 2-minute speech, and we always ask them to then present it, and your role is to critique. Many times mentors don't know how to critique because they feel, oh, if I tell her, but you critique based on these things. Is the mentee's story speaking to the audience as is? For instance, if she's talking about a skincare product she wants to launch, or she's talking about, is she speaking to the audience? Is she resonating? That's when you don't avoid being boring. What you're actually speaking to an audience. Are you trying to sell the product to this group, or are you trying to inspire them to practice and use it, whatever it is? And so you use this to critique. But people can say, oh my God, that was so nice. But what was nice about it? What was nice about the speech? Help them to grow by sharing them how they can make their messages more impactful and how they can communicate better. And as I said, it's a muscle. Practice. And you'll see that you will start making amazing presentation at work. I've taught this to technical experts, doctors, when they now go to speak, lawyers, they say they are met with a different, the audience resonates better with them. Scientists, people working in the food sector, they say people resonate much better with them now than when they just spewed out numbers and facts. And when they took years to present. I never even take days on my presentations. Very short, because I'm saying you can pass on a message in 2 minutes. You can pass on a powerful and inspire, and it's clear, it has clarity, and you persuade people to your cause. So I think that is it for me. Don't forget your age group. So that's the audience. If you're dealing with 18-year-olds, you're not, or you're dealing with 30-year-olds. And then the story is often the central piece together with the logic. The two have to go hand in hand, but you don't just focus on the logic here. And it's not linear. It's never linear. Thank you so much.
Wow, great. That was an amazing session, Alan. Flowers once more to our super mentor, Alan. Thank you so much. And I hope that you have gained clarity. And the key takeaway points are knowing your audience, clarity, persuasion, inspiration, and always having a call to action. And it's a muscle, so practice. Thank you so much, Alan, for that. We'll now move directly to the next session that Nondumiso will be taking us through. Then afterwards, we can do a bit of a stretch. So flowers to Allen. Nondumiso, karibu sana. Let us know if you can hear us.
Hi, Mercy. Can you hear me on your side?
Yes, perfectly.
All right, thank you. Good morning or good afternoon, ladies, depending on which side of the world you are on. My name is Nondumiso, and I'll be taking you through Module 4, which is negotiations, advocating for yourself, as well as just simply advocating for others. If you are following through the Mentors Guide, we are currently on page 12 for Module 4. So that's just one of the pages that you'll be using in helping you to prepare for this session that I love absolutely so much. And coincidentally, when we speak about negotiations, actually, I'm reminded of a time when I was still a mentee in G4G, and I was just so frustrated by the career path that I had chosen. And when choosing that career path that had been obviously advised by different people based on what they had observed about me that they thought I would be great at. But deep inside, I had this yearning for just something more with regards to my career. So when we were having this particular negotiations session with our mentor, we were mostly speaking about negotiating for yourself within the context of a job interview. So in the session itself, when we were going through it, for me, the most powerful elements that helped me become successful when I was changing or pivoting with my career was really this framework by Professor Kesley Hong, which is the YOU framework. And as I begin to just quickly unpack the YOU framework, I just want to encourage the ladies on the call, if you can just put in the chat, perhaps an instance or a situation recently where you had to negotiate either for yourself or negotiate for others. And sometimes in this particular session, we refer to it as having a difficult conversation. So if you can just feel free to go into the chat, to just pop in the chat a recent example that you can think of that's top of mind where you had to either negotiate for yourself or you were negotiating for a cause or you were negotiating for other people. And so as we continue with this module, one of the most important things that I believe as a mentor you should constantly be emphasizing with the mentees is that as and when they continue with this journey of negotiating, in some space, form, shape or the other, they are already negotiating for themselves. If they are in school, there are some instances where they need to negotiate for themselves. Either they are negotiating with their roommate, maybe there's an issue with noise levels at a particular hour, and they're negotiating with their roommate to say, maybe can we not have loud music playing in our dormitory or our room after 9 o'clock in the evening, or they're negotiating with their lecturers, their professors. Maybe perhaps they feel that they've been shortchanged with a particular mark that they received, either for an assignment, a test, or an exam. So in some shape, form, or the other, either on a weekly or monthly basis, the mentees are already negotiating for themselves. But then that puts us sometimes in a position as mentors to then ask ourselves, then why does Module 4 exist? What is the objective of having Module 4 if mentees are already negotiating for themselves somewhere, somehow, on a weekly or monthly basis in the spaces that they occupied? So the most important thing I think to come out of this module is you are really aiming to show your mentees that we are not just negotiating without some sort of framework or guideline, but we are negotiating to become effective negotiators. We want to be negotiators that are ultimately working towards a win-win outcome or a win-win result. So Professor Kesley Hong then takes us through this U framework where it's the Y for yourself, the O for others, and the U for understanding, where she explains how do you become an effective negotiator in whatever difficult circumstance that you find yourself in. I see on the chat that Sarah has shared a particular case for herself where she was negotiating for persons living with disabilities in a new organization that was planning for costs. Sarah wanted to include them to have reasonable accommodation costs, but you could have pushed more. And I think that's such a powerful reflection that you're having, Sarah, to say that looking back, there's something better that I could have done. And perhaps as we go through this key principle of the YOU framework, we can then begin to unpack, according to this framework, did you perhaps understand your goals, your interests, your strengths coming into the situation where this organization was helping or assisting persons living with disabilities? Were you aware in the organization who can help you or what was blocking you? In this particular instance, maybe perhaps the person who was in charge of the finances or the costing aspect of the organization was concerned about maybe perhaps these particular items that we need to purchase or particular initiatives that we need to kick off. They may be too expensive or out of budgets that we had prepared for, as well as the you, which means, you know, understanding people and appealing to people. How do they like to be addressed in a simple instance when you frame your words? Alan just spoke about the art of communication, understanding who the audience is across that negotiation table that you are sitting in. So these are some of the most important key principles that as a mentor, you want to impart on the mentees to understand that whatever difficult or challenging circumstance, we can really unpack it to see, you know, from a yourself perspective, do you understand your own goals, your own interests and weaknesses? And perhaps moving further down when they move to module 6, where they learn about values and ethics and knowing what their non-negotiables are. That's a huge part of understanding who you are. And it's only when you understand who you are that you can find a way to be clear with your ask. When you're asking for a particular cause, you're asking for a promotion, you are asking for the fair distribution of domestic duties at home. Maybe you're negotiating with your children or you're negotiating with your spouse. So that clear and key aspect of that framework, of the U framework, understanding who you are. Why do I want this to amount in a certain way or to come out in a certain way? And then understanding others. What are some of the things that they are their non-negotiables? What are they going to do to stop me from achieving that which it is that I want to achieve? And how can I lobby them to be a part of my mission and be a part of this vision that I have for a particular outcome, a matter, or maybe simply just getting a promotion or a raise at work? And then last but not least, again, understanding what it is that they feel that is important in their own causes, and that which you are proposing, is it not standing in their own way? So that is briefly the U framework. And I think now, Mercy, if it's okay with you, we can go into the breakout rooms to just look back on, just as Sarah had reflected in the chat function, to reflect on some of the instances where we were once put in a difficult position or challenging position, where we had to negotiate for a particular cause, negotiate for a matter, either for ourselves or for our community that was around us. If you can go to the next slide, Mercy, so that we can have the instructions. All right. Thank you so much, Velma. Thank you so much. So as we go into the circles, we are going into the circles for the next 10 minutes. And just like Sarah in the chat, to really speak about a time when you had a difficult conversation where you had to negotiate, and to really start beginning to use the YOU framework. I almost want to say the same word that Alan used, to critique what worked well in that particular conversation that you had to have, and what didn't work so well according to the YOU framework. And if there's still enough time, perhaps you can select a representative in the group to come back into the plenary as soon as the breakout rooms close, to just share some of the things that emerge from your conversations in the breakout rooms. Velma, I think we can go to the breakout rooms.
So ladies, please join the various breakout rooms. In case you're not in one, I'm seeing a couple are not there, so we'll assign you immediately. But in case you have received the notification, please join the room. Tahira, Tracy, Sakani, please join the different rooms. I see you've been assigned to the rooms. Pakama, Tracy, Sakani, Moloto, Victoria, and Sarah. Oh, Sakani, I've seen your message. Let us know how we can help. Are you being kicked out? Let us know how we can come in. Pakama, Victoria, Sarah, Sakani, please let's join the different rooms. I see everybody has been assigned.
How many minutes do we have for the groups? Are they about to come back?
We have 3 minutes.
3, eh?
Yeah.
Okay. And what you could do, Velma, is just put some music so that when they're joining, there's some music, but you need to stop recording. We keep forgetting. You have to just be mindful of the recording.
Okay.
But if it's too much, just at least stop recording during the breaks like this.
All right.
There, all you need to do is just sign up and package and take it home. And she basically, from her sharing, we picked out 2 points in terms of what worked out well and 1 point of what didn't work out well for future, for lack of a better word, for how to basically make sure the next negotiation goes well. So Angela was caught in a situation where the product was finished, it was being signed for, and then the person who was supposed to sign for sort of sidelined it. So in terms of making it personal and then basically playing against ethics, business ethics. So she basically said what worked out well was listening to what the other party's interests are and how they played within the value chain of what she stood for personally and what her firm stood for, so individually and collectively, and then played around that to basically make sure that the listeners, the second party, basically his interests were aligned within the value system without losing that. And secondly, I think one which is very important to us all is the listening. She went and reestablished a new goal. The new goal was win-win. So she had to listen and make sure that when she got out, she got the contract, but at the same time, the other parties' interests were also basically represented. And she basically listened. What does he want, and how can I get what he wants to fit within our value system? And then the part where we say what didn't work well, and which is actually and she said the third party presence. She went into the meeting with 2 people, assuming that, well, this is what is supposed to be done. We've done all the work, we've communicated, this is a done deal, we sign, have a glass of wine and go back home. And she had not anticipated the deviation from that. And I think she said should have appreciated a third party presence. And one of the things that I picked up was the fact that a third party presence basically then presents accountability. And especially when the negotiation goes a bit south, the third party then puts the other party into a position where, am I willing to put my values on and to basically disregard my values for personal interest? So I thought what didn't work well, yes, the third party presence was not there. And the takeaway was when you go to negotiation like this and you're put in a position where it becomes one-on-one, a third party is actually quite valuable. So we really did appreciate Angela's contribution and guidance. Sorry, I made it brief as possible.
Thank you so much, Gozi. That is just such a wonderful. I also like the approach that you used, where you just focused on one individuals and you unpacked all the elements around it. Is there anyone else, perhaps, before I just draw from some of the insights that Gozi shared? Anyone else
Irene
from the
has her
breakout?
hand up. Yes,
you may
Irene
go
from my
ahead.
group has her hand up.
You may go ahead, Irene.
Thank you. I was in group 3 and we discussed, I think everyone was able to talk about an experience where they had to negotiate for themselves with the teams. And what came out from many of us is that the numbers, many of us who were negotiating would point out the benefits that would bring to the organization or their teams. And they would bring out how it would help the teams to perform better. And most of them were successful. And then, but there were, when it comes to negotiation, someone pointed out that it's always a hard topic. And you can easily be misunderstood. Someone might think you want it you're trying to get something for yourself, and sometimes they might not really take what you're talking about. And sometimes it may be better to just let them knock, and then they'll come back to you. But always we need to be patient and understanding, and also not give up on the negotiation. I think that's what we discussed. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing, Irene. And maybe just to close off this session, one of the really interesting ways to help the mentees when you go into your circles to really understand the U framework and start demonstrating their understanding in practice is to do the role play with a particular object or in a particular scenario. So in some instances, depending on the group, you'll either use an orange, a fruit, an apple that the mentees need to use to, negotiate and see if they can work towards reaching a win-win situation. And then in other groups, which really works effectively, in my opinion, is to actually throw it back to the mentees to brainstorm or come up with a scenario that all of them in the circle can relate to, so that once they are done with the role play where they are negotiating and they are supposed to give feedback on whether they observe the U principles in practice, they are able to do so using an example that is relatable to them. And then to just close off, just some things to watch out for when you move into the negotiation session. The first one being something that Gonzi shared that they got from the breakout room, to understand that as you close off the negotiation session, you have to constantly remind the mentees that the negotiation process is always going to be supported by other skills. And so in your instance, you shared that the active listening was important. And maybe sometimes it's a matter of perspective as well, where it's either relationship building or relationship management as a whole. Does the situation that you find yourself in require a third party to weigh in or to moderate or mediate as you negotiate with the other party or the person? And then also to bring across what Irene said, to also always remind the mentees that negotiation is not an instantaneous process. So it doesn't happen in perhaps 10 seconds a day or a 20-minute conversation that you can have with another party. Sometimes it can take time. Of months, years. And if you are talking about causes such as fighting for gender equality, sometimes it may take a lifetime. So it's always also important to remind the mentees as they go through that process of negotiating that they may need to find themselves in a position where they are exercising a lot of patience to see it through and work towards the win-win outcome. And then one of the other things, perhaps, to close off this particular session is to really understand why this module is so important in really creating this upcoming generation, already existing generation of women who are going to become leaders. The fact that advocacy is a key component of being an effective leader, where you understand who you are, and you are able to walk into negotiations or sit across the table from either an opposition or someone who forms part of your village and lobby them into the cause or the objectives that you are working towards is so important, and is really the stepping stone of the next session that comes through, which is the one of public service, where you are serving now communities or individuals on a much larger scale. So as a mentor, I'd really encourage you to go into the session understanding the impact that the mentees can have for themselves or the world at large when they become effective negotiators that are constantly working towards a win-win situation using the YOU framework. Thank you so much, ladies, for engaging us in this session. I'm so happy that there's some sort of value that you may have gotten through the session, and I'd like to hand over back to the team. And thank you so much, Mercy. I wanted to just say before I close off, for handling this session so well and moderating so beautifully. You've kept us so engaged, and I hope that you continue to grow in this role. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Nondumiso. And flowers to our super mentor. Wasn't that amazing? So flowers to you, Nondumiso. And just a bit of a recap. I loved how you ended up connecting your session to the upcoming session. And I just want to take us back to how, when you talked about negotiation is supported by other skills, taking us to the previous session where we had, the art of communication amongst others. So I see Allen has raised her hand. Allen, we have 2 minutes and then we get to
I know you're quite tough on time, and I just want to add my voice to thank Nondomiso. Don't you just love how she speaks? I mean, I could have listened to you, Nondomiso, for long and forever. But I just want to recap a couple of things, and I had it in when many of you were presenting or sharing back. Negotiations is not complex. We always fear that it's difficult, and yet for women, we need it. We need to understand how to advocate, as Nondomiso says. We need to understand how to speak up. We need to understand how to say what we want and what we mean. 2 things that I wanted you to point out to remain with. It's, as Nondomiso said, it's a process, it's conversations. When we see negotiations, we think of North Korea and the US. You think of captives. You think of hostage situations. And you think of that big man who is talking with certainty and, that is what the world shows us of negotiations. But daily we are negotiating. Daily we are in spaces where you're negotiating with your children, you're negotiating with your boss, you're negotiating with your peers, your staff, you're negotiating with others in other sectors. So it's these conversations that we carry on, that when we want something for our cause, for what we are driving, how do we persuade others? How do we ensure that we get what we need to progress our cause? 2 things. For women, we're often seen as weak. We're often seen as crying. So given a scenario, when you're dealing with young women in the 30s or 20s, many of them what are they negotiating for? It is promotion. It is salary increase. It is with their partner. So maybe you're 32, you're negotiating with your partner. Please help me with the work at home. Please help me. Most times you end up in tears because you feel so frustrated. You feel so angry. You feel, you go to negotiate with the HR for a salary raise and you end up in tears, you storm out. You go to negotiate with your boss for a promotion, you storm out. So we are often seen as weak, emotional, and that kind of thing. But trust me, our weaknesses are also our strengths. The fact that we relate, we engage, we are emotional, it actually makes us better negotiators. We can use these emotions to our advantage. We can actually stand these situations that you go in with strength instead of from a point of weakness. And Professor Kesley Hong says, we are stronger when we have many paths to our journey. So negotiations is about options. When you go and talk to your boss about a promotion, you also are sharing options and you're sharing the value that you're going to add to the company. Many times, unfortunately, we go in with just one position. If you don't promote me, I will leave. Then the boss tells you, okay, you leave. Then you're stuck. You walk and you have nowhere to go. So we are trying to ensure young women know that they can negotiate from a point of strength, which is what Nondomiso has been bringing out. The fact that you prepare, the U framework prepares you to know your strengths, who you are. It is simple. It simplifies it. It also allows you to see that you have options. Many young women and older women never realize they have options. In any situation, we have options. The second thing for you as mentors to note is this module works for different age groups. If it's a woman, a girl of 15 to 20, she's negotiating with her parents. I want to go to the mall. No, you first do your homework, first do housework. I want to have a boyfriend. No, you're too young. So these are the negotiations they are having, the conversations they're having with their teachers. My homework is late, this. If it's 20s to 30s, often they're negotiating for a new job. They are negotiating for a salary. They're negotiating, to buy a car, their first car. They are starting to pay their mortgage. If it's in the 30s to 40s, you're negotiating for promotions. Look at the different scenarios. It's a live thing. It's a live thing. This is life we are living. How do we actually make sure that our voice is heard, that we are getting what we want in a way that serves us, but also serves our communities, and that we are also using that voice to serve the wider world. Look at Nondomiso using her voice on gender activism to serve her community, to make sure that issues of women are being heard by the world. So don't let it stop with you. Once you feel you're capable, you're able to speak out to the rest of the world. So for me, I've stood as a president of the Law Society of the Female Lawyers, in Uganda. I was the chairperson of the Female Lawyers. I've represented on so many platforms. I've used my voice to impact the world around me. I didn't let it stop with me. That's what we say, advocating for others. So don't forget the gender dynamics and why we must have negotiation skills. Don't forget the age-appropriate dynamics. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Allen, for that insight. I think it's very paramount. So before we go to our next speaker, I'd like for us to do a bit of stretching, okay? So let's just, I hope you can see my screen and you can hear me. Let's just stretch to the farthest possible back you can. Let's just stretch to the farthest possible and then come forward. You can hold on to your screen. Let's do that again. Let's stretch to the farthest possible. We have 2 more sessions. Ladies, we can do this. And I congratulate and commend us. I still see we are at 33. So maybe just 2 have dropped and hopefully they'll be joining soon. So ladies, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Angela Wainaina, who will be taking us through the 5th module. Angela, karibu sana. Hope you can hear me.
I can hear you loud and clear, Mercy. Thank you. Thank you for the stretch. I think we needed it. Yeah, so I'm going to take you through public service and running for office. And you remember when we started the session, there are 2 things that Alan said that I felt was so important for this particular module. She said, one thing she said is, we don't need permission. You don't need permission to do what you need to do. And then the second thing she said is that Girls for Girls, we are here so that we are able to get girls and women to step up and fill positions. Yeah. And so this module is about that. All the modules that we've gone through so far, module 1 to 4, prepare us to be able to take on service, roles in service. And so what we're doing here is looking at how do you empower the mentees to be equipped to be able to say, okay, I'm able to take on a position, I want to sit at a table, I want to serve as a leader in whatever capacity and in whatever environment. And so the module is really looking at, it says public service and running for office. And this is really about the different aspects of our society where we can serve as leaders. So public service could be serving in government. Running for office could be serving in your community. It could be serving at work. It could be taking on leadership roles in the community. It could be taking on leadership roles at church. And what we found is that it applies across all age groups. So your 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds who are in high school actually have been able to use this module. And I'll just share a story about how this has happened for G4G, as well as women who are over 20 and above and are taking on leadership roles. So the module applies across the board. So because as mentors, you just need to be aware, sometimes when mentees see public service and running for office, they think, oh, it means that I have to be at a certain place to be able to take on a position. No, you don't. And so let's look at what this is about. So it's really about getting our mentees to understand that they need to be able to be in a position where they're able to influence policy, influence decisions, be seen as leaders who have a voice and who can bring change. And so what we're looking at is there are a couple of things that come out in this module. And when you're going through the module as a mentor, one of the things that we need to keep in mind is the aspect about how do we overcome the barriers that are perceived or are out there for us as women. Because when we're taking on some of these roles, the perception is that I'm not good enough, I can't meet the standard. How do I rise in this position? There are various biases that will come that women, as a woman, you're not good enough, but really you are. And the thing is, how do you make sure that you put yourself out there so that you're able to be considered to take on this office or this role and be able to run with it? And so this session the module aims to make sure that mentees understand how do you present yourself in a way that people will be able to consider you to be able to take on a leadership role. So one of the things that I was reflecting on just when we were doing the introductions at the beginning, Mercy put up my profile, and then on there were 2 things that stood out for me, still stand out for me, and I'll tell you why. she talked about me being a board member at 2 organizations and actually 3, including G4G. But I have to say that those roles I took on after joining G4G, because it is what we have gone through that helped me to take on those positions in terms of being able to say, you know what, they're looking for this kind of a standard. Well, I am that standard and I am going to do it, and I am going to try and use the skills that have been given at G4G. Yeah, because you'll never meet 100%. Even if you meet 60%, take it and go and work on the rest while you're there. Yeah, because a lot of the times as women, we say, oh, you know, I think I only meet 70% of the criteria, and so you let it go. But a man in another capacity will say, you know what, I have 30%, but I'm going to go and apply for this role, and a lot of the times they get it. But as women, we over criticize ourselves, and the thing about this module is telling us, no, you say yes, take on the role, and these are some of the things that we need to think about. So I'm going to take you through what is it that as mentors we need to bring out during the sessions with the mentees. And there are a couple of things here. One, there's an inspiration video that we watched by Professor Steve Jardine. And in this module, there are a couple of things that we need to emphasize as mentors. The first thing is that you should not change who you are. Always be yourself, because when you're looking at stepping out, sitting at the table, you need to be your authentic self. So don't compare yourself to anybody else and say, I'm not good enough, or I don't think I can take on this role because I don't have this qualification, or I don't have this number of years of experience that's been asked for. Take it on, present yourself, and then sell yourself while you're there. So, and when you're yourself, you find that people will buy into what you're saying and what you have. The second thing, the second area, that principle that comes out during this module and that we need to bring out is about nothing should arrive before you do. So one of the things that as women, we're very conscious about how we look and how we dress, which is very important. However, when you're running for office and presenting yourself to serve, let me say to serve, people look at and listen. They look at the way you're dressed, which is very important, but they also want to see how you carry yourself in terms of your voice, the way you use your body language, because those are the things that are important when you're serving in some of these roles. So when we say nothing should arrive before you do, it's about dressing the way you want to be addressed. Let me put it that way. Dress the way you want to be addressed, but also come out and use your voice, use your hands to deliver your message in terms of being able to say, this is why I am here, this is what this is what I can do, this is what I have, and this is what I'm capable of. The other thing that we need to bring out as mentors in this module is the fact that a lot of the times when we're going out and perhaps looking for the positions in office, or are approached to take on a role or to take on an opportunity, sometimes you find that people patronize you. And one of the things that we emphasize that we need to emphasize in this module is that don't let anybody patronize you, because you should stand up for who you are. You should also respond and call out anything that you see that you don't like. And this is linked now to courageous leadership, being able to recognize what you're aligned to, what doesn't work for you, or what you don't consider to be proper, and just being able to say, you know what, this is not right. We're not doing it this way. Yeah, and that is what we need to be able to bring out when we are emphasizing the need to be able to present yourself in office, to be able to influence decisions, because that is where some of these things are tested. And this is where you need to really be sure about, going back to don't change who you are. And it links to the next module, which is about ethics and values. And this is the opportunity in this module. I always see an opportunity here to bring in module 1 to 4 and also module 6, just in terms of being able to stand up as a leader and serve. So I wanted to share one or two things that I've seen as a leader in G4G. And one, when I say this applies to all ages, we had a cohort 2 years ago of teenagers. They were 17-year-old girls. There were 8 girls, and it was COVID time, so they were doing online learning. And then we went through an online program with them, G4G. And then the holidays ended and they went back to school. And all of them were in their last year of high school. And all of them were going into a year where it was time for, head girl selection, prefect selection, head of council selection. So, we finished the program in August. So they went into school in September. And I kid you not, 4 months later, the parents of those girls, because you get parental consent to share some of these stories, started coming back to us and saying, my daughter has been elected head girl. My daughter took on a role in the council. My daughter is prefect. Now, some of those things would not have happened if some of those girls hadn't come through this program, and it was because of building the confidence. So one of the things that we need to just really think through as mentors, as you're going through this session, is look at how it links to the practical skills from communication and the negotiation session, and also encourage your mentees to take on new roles. Yeah, so it could be they're garnering for a promotion. Encourage them to do so. Share your story. Tell them about looking out for new roles so that you don't remain stagnant where you are. The new roles could be in the office. The new roles could be outside the office. The opportunities for running for service, public service, are many, and you don't need to look very far to do that. At the beginning, I saw somebody saying it was in another group, they're a leader of a Bible study. It's things like that. That's how you start to get out there, and this is what this module equips you to do. So I'm seeing I have, I think, 5 minutes, Mercy. So I'll just open it up for comments, questions, thoughts before my time is up.
Are people sleeping? Where are they? This is a powerful module.
Vera has her hand raised. Vera, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I agree with Alan. This is a powerful session, and thank you for the presentation. And I'm happy that this is part of the modules and the conversation to have with young girls. I'm particular about the young girls because we have so much gap in terms of leadership, and we can't do much when they are older. So I have served in public office as an assembly member in my district as an assembly woman, and I know the impact that I was one of the youngest. I was at the age of about 25. An assembly member of 32, we were only 2 women, and the difficulty I went through. And so most of the time I say, if we want to have more women at the top, if we want more women in governance, if you look at across the world and even in Africa, you realize that there's very few women, and we keep advocating and pushing for more women, but we can't do it from the top. We need to start building young girls to understand that politics is not bad. Sometimes we don't have this conversation at early stage. So we wait till they get to certain stage before we start introducing them. And so I am really excited that running for office and public service is part of the models that G4G take the girls or the men. We can have there are different stages, but I am particular about having the girls to understand, and I know that this is also part of it. It runs through all the age group for mentoring, and so I am excited about it because the gap is just way too much, and we have girls who can do it. It takes a little confidence to say that yes, you can do it, and so I'm really excited about this one, and this is something that I just wanted to comment. I was so excited about it that I just wanted to share my own experience about being in the assembly at the local level and having women in there and the kind of causes that we can push. So we can't, I keep saying that it's not enough to advocate and be an activist. There are times we need the women themselves in power to make the change that we are looking for. So something I wanted to add to this, to commend the leadership for this particular module. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vera. Any other comments, questions?
Yeah, Ngonzi.
Gonzi has her hand up.
When I listened to this, thanks, Angela, it was really quite inspirational. And one of the things that comes to mind, public service and running for office. I always believe, or always take the various mentoring opportunities I've been given, is to look at where are you? What does public service and running for office then mean at that level? Because I believe if we learn to, I was watching a TED talk where it was saying that you need to learn how to impact your local, your village, your home, your community, and then all these huge aspiration of running for office means running for public office. What is your public in your immediate environment? And I just believe taking the wisdom and that Angela has provided in her presentation and saying, okay, getting these girls at where they are and say, okay, what is your public service at where you were, in your family, in your community, in your friendship groups? How do those particular abilities, ways and means, how can we apply them at that level? And then I think preparing the girls at the level they are, then basically it's a stage of, as they go higher, is then you add more tools to their belt. But I'm looking at it from the point of view, how do I start where I find you? And then how do I impact, and how do I use those nuggets that I'm getting, or those ways and means to impact where I am? So that public service, not only, I want to approach it where I'm looking at public service politics is not only in the government space, but politics is also at the level we are at. So Angela, thanks so much. I really appreciated that. And then the ability to take what you have presented and be able to sort of customize it to where I am and then build it from there.
Thank you. Mercy, over to you, I think. If there are no other comments.
Thank you, Angie. Ladies, any other question or comment before we close it up? Alan?
I mean, Angie has shared her story. I have seen Angie since 2018 when we started in Kenya, in one of those, we went to a school that is in one of the worst places you can think of living. It's drug infected, it's a slum area. I remember when we asked the kids, what are your fears? And they say to be shot, to be killed. These were kids, girls who are 15 to 18. They were in our school and they had told us, come and help us mentor these girls. And of course, the poverty there, we never thought anything would, we were even scared when we would drive there, would be scared because there are drugs, there are gangs. And these girls were living there daily. And I remember standing with Angela and we're all looking at this hopeless situation or what looked like. But these girls had ability. In their situation, in their settings, they were living life and they were surviving. And all they wanted was someone to tell them, actually, you can make good of your dreams, because they had the most amazing dreams, to be chefs, to be doctors. And I remember when we came to public service, afterwards, the headmistress told us, many times the girls were now putting up their hands to stand. Even in the schools they went to, they were head girls, they were prefects. They could now see the power. Because we had a very funny incident in the school. When we went there, they were fighting over toilet paper. Two best friends were fighting over toilet paper. One had the power, she was the class monitor, and she controlled how much toilet paper you got when you were going to the toilet. They were supposed to give 7 pieces to each person, and her friend had wanted more, but the friend didn't tell her why she wanted more. So when we came to mediate this battle that was tearing the school apart, we asked the friend, but did you tell her what you wanted the toilet paper for? Negotiations, remember? Did you tell her maybe you had periods? Maybe you had a running stomach? Maybe, you wanted to go for a long call and you needed toilet paper. it was such a powerful insight for them. They saw that actually when you're in a position, you can influence so much. You can influence resources. You can influence. So imagine how many, if we had many ministers of health that are female with their right head on, we wouldn't be having women dying for lack of medicine, for lack of the appropriate care in hospitals. But look at where all the priorities are going. It's in guns, it's in arms, it's in, things that are not benefiting women and girls in our societies. So that's why, as Angela says, this one is about power. We are not shy. This one is about getting girls in positions where they can influence. But we also, as a mentor, you're telling girls, don't wake up overnight and you say, I'm going to be on a board of a bank. It takes years. You have to first serve an usher in your church, serve on Rotary, serve in G4G as a cohort leader. All these things give you the strength, the confidence to know that you can lead. And so your role as a mentor is to really keep showing the girls that there are so many spaces they can serve. In some countries we have worked with, in Brunei, in Malaysia, they struggle with political office. And I know Vera has talked passionately about it. But some countries, women are not seeing politics as the avenue. But we are telling them politics is a space for which we find it dirty, we find it difficult, but how can we continue being outside? If we are going to change the laws, if we are going to change that are patriarchal, that are keeping women behind, we are going to have to enter that fray. We are going to have to enter that fray. We are going to have to be in those very difficult spaces. So we have to prepare girls for this as well. So public service, serving where you can, running for office, political positions, and maybe even in our organizations, very key. So thank you very much, Angela.
Great. Thank you so much, Angela, for leading us through that session and for all the additions that we have gotten from Alan and our additional mentors. Great. So ladies, we are moving on to our final session of the day, whereby we will have Neo take us through. Neo, confirm you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Welcome.
I thought we Okay, thank you so much. Ethics and values and decision making. My name is Nell, as has been shared already. This topic is quite interesting. I use the word interesting because there are so many dimensions that as human beings cohabiting or coexisting, we can actually approach it in whichever way we want. But now when you stand before people that you are mentoring and you are supposed to discuss with them about such a topic, you are talking about core principles that a person lives by. And this is not principles that started when they met you. These are principles that probably they were brought up with. They were built into them. And it's a way of life that they had actually absorbed and actually adopted as the only way they understand. Now, I want to say this. You know, when you talk about ethics, there are different aspects to it. There is the personal ethics part. There is the career if you are on the job. And then there is the extension that is talking to the community. These are three elements of ethics. And they exist in all of us. And now when you're standing before people, like if I was to give an example, when I was starting with the cohort that I was with, I'm personally an introvert. And being an introvert, it is easier for me when I get into a group to gravitate towards bringing people out of their shells and ensuring that they are not shadowed or they don't become shy and they don't let opportunities pass them by. So I was vocal about, okay, guys, we are here. We have two different characters. We have introverts and we have extroverts. I was not worried about the extroverts because I know they tend to shine. They tend to take the center stage and they tend to do well. But I was worried about the introverts. Now, these are areas now where you want to dive deeper and say what ethics govern the person behind the facade that I see. Okay. I want to again talk to this as a topic that causes people to sort of like clash sometimes, because ethics and values are different from person to person. There is a book that I wrote. I'm actually an author that is talking. It's called Shadows in the Dark. There is a chapter there. It's called the illusion of virtue. The reason I call it the illusion of virtue is this. I realize in the society that we live in today, we tend to depend on influencing in masses. It's not about whether something is right or wrong these days. It's about how many people agree with it. And the mainstream will normally influence decisions that are made, not whether the decision is right or wrong. When you talk about right and wrong, those are aspects of duality. Duality is anything that can be good or evil, light or dark, yes or no. Those are dualities. But in the world we live today, we have come to a point where it's based on how many people say this goes. It's not based on the moral ethic. It's not based on the moral absolutism. And that is the problem we live in society today. We live within society today. If I'm just to touch on a very sensitive topic that is around the world today as we speak, it's the element of identification. I can identify as male, and I was born female. And depending on which country I'm in or which society I'm in, I can fight and win or I can fight and lose. Now that's where ethics come in. That's where ethics become important, because now the question is not only about what do I want, it's about what is right based on moral values. Because you cannot separate ethics from virtue, and you cannot separate virtue from morality. These are three elements of a character quality that you cannot separate from each other. Ethics without virtue is an illusion. And when you talk about ethics, that's the highest purpose or the highest calling a person has, whether you're a teacher, whether you're an engineer, like I'm a mining engineer by profession. I'll just relate what happens in my industry, in my environment. Whether you are a doctor, whether you are a nurse, whether you're in security, whether you are in HR, ethics always comes up. And this is why they come up. I'll use myself as an example. I work in a very male-dominated industry. And it is such that the dominance has elements of 1, bullying, 2, harassment, 3, stigmatization. And when you look at these elements, they are subtle. They are not in your face. You're sitting in a boardroom, you're having a conversation with colleagues, and you're in a meeting. A lot of the times, I'm either the only woman or there are 2 other women there, or I'm the second woman. And it is not an easy thing, because when I graduated in my class, it was a class of over 20. There were 3 women in that classroom. No, there were 4 women. 1 never made it into the mining industry. She went to tourism. The other 2, the other one left mining completely. She went into training. She became a trainer. And the other one left mining completely to into processing. So I was relatively the only one who went into mining, and it has not been easy. Now, the aspect of ethics comes here. Being in a male-dominated industry, now, when I'm talking to mentees, and this is why I became a mentor, if I may just say, because in the town that I'm in and the surrounding villages, we have aspects of men taking advantage of these young girls because they are minors, they have money, they have resources, they entice these young girls. And I took it upon myself to say, you know what? I might not do everything, but I must do something. Whatever bit I can contribute, this is what I will do. And that's why I became a mentor in this environment that I'm in. You get elements of not only these gentlemen taking advantage of the young women, but also taking of older women like myself. Old as we are, because you want one a promotion. You want one to be sponsored to go and be developed for a scholarship. You want something to make sure that your career proceeds and it elevates and it goes up. And the sad reality of ethics in this manner is this: as women, we can be divided. I think this is one of the group of women I'm around. When we talk about this topic, I'm like, we are of the same mind. Because in the workplace, in our community, sometimes we are divided in this topic as women, because another woman, and genuinely you will see the pain when she says, I had no choice, I had to feed my children. And this is as women allowing such pressures in society and ethically being compromised. What option do we have now to say that we can do better without succumbing to compromising our moral values? What can we do to stand together? And it is cycles like this. If we could just form more as we talk to mentors, encourage them, because it starts small and it gets bigger when the growth is not stopping. We have instances now when ethically, in one of the groups I was mentoring, I had a young girl there because it was a high school. I had a young girl there who was quite powerful, influential young lady. You know, she had a presence about her. And she gave a story about what she went through. She was running for office as an student representative council. And she was running with a guy. She's tiny. She's the epitome of you know, the term that says dynamite comes in small packages. She is so tiny, but she is a force to contend with. She's running for office with this guy. This guy is bigger. And this guy is going around making it his business to tear her down, to make people aware that she's too small. She's a woman, particularly because she's a woman. She cannot sit in that seat. The advisors that she had at the time advised her, look, we have dirt on this guy. We can release it. Just let us do it. He will not be able to win. But ethically, she said, will I be doing the right thing? Even though what is being said, it's true. He has done these things. He has taken advantage of young girls in school. He has done 2, he has done 3, he has done 4. Should I be doing that to him? And ethically, she decided, no, I'm not gonna. She lost the elections because he was fighting dirty, and she would not do the same to him. And sometimes those are the risks that we take, the losses that we take. But I always say it's never a loss, because when I look at that young girl, she might have not got the SR seat as president, but bigger things are coming for her. I can tell you that. As a young lady with good moral values, with good ethics, I see greater things for her. I can also use myself as an example, because as a mining engineer, I have personally lost out on positions I should have taken or that I deserved, simply because behind the scenes, a man was having a conversation with me where I said, no, I can't do that. I qualify for this position. I don't understand why it has to be you do this, then I can give you that. And I lost out. I recently lost out on an opportunity to appear in a magazine because of such conversations. So sometimes we forfeit opportunities. But I say this because I believe that necessitates me to say I can be a leader. Leadership is not about what you gain for yourself. I always say, when you are a leader, you are able to plant a tree and you know you will never sit under its shade. That tree will grow, it will have a shade, but it's the people who come after you who are going to be able to sit under the shade and enjoy it. But sometimes ethics is not just about losing opportunities. Sometimes you gain respect. And in most cases, you actually gain respect, whereby someone comes up to you and say, you know what, you gave me the courage to do the right thing. And in that way, you're building a network, you're building a community, you're building a family, you're building a cycle. You stand together. You might lose some, but trust you me, you win some. There are many instances whereby I was alone in a stand. And when I thought I was alone, I left the room. People started just to come to me to say, you know what, we are with you here. And we were able to move forward. So now, just to round it up, You know, the topic of ethics is a sensitive one. Sensitive not because it's difficult, but sensitive because we hide behind others when we are supposed to make decisions. We hide behind the biggest voice in the room when we're supposed to make decisions. Sometimes take a risk, be the biggest voice in the room, even if it means disagreeing with everyone else. Even if it means you being the only one with that opinion, being the only one with that suggestion, being the only one with that understanding. Dare to be different. Dare to stand out. Dare to be vocal. I like what Alan was saying at the beginning when she was talking about some leadership it doesn't have to roll. Ethics are similar in that way. You don't need to make noise to be ethically correct. You just need to have a stand. It's actually best to be calm when your morality is challenged or your ethic values are under attack. In that way, you are able to make a decision that will not only benefit you, it will benefit the people around you, and it will benefit people who will come after you. These are challenges that are common from country to country, from organization to organization, irrespective of the profession that you're in, whether you're a housewife, whether you're a professional person, ethics always come up because they are a core of who we are. I'm not sure if there are any questions or comments before closing the discussion.
Thank you so much, Neil. Ladies, feel free to unmute or post in the chat. Alan?
You're free to.
Neo has really shared powerfully, and I can see Catherine is coming in, but let me just add a couple of things. This topic is a very difficult one, as Nia has said, because it is about what are those values that you rely on to take decisions. Now, in a normal situation, it's easy. But at times we are so challenged by situations that it's neither black or white. It's very gray. And you're wondering, how do I take the decision? I've given an example of myself. I love family. I love my children. And at the age of 42, I had to leave my children behind to go and pursue this master's that has born Girls for Girls. I went to Harvard. I had to take away a year. My kids were at a very delicate age. And of course, as a single mother, I left them behind. And yet I always say, I love family. I love my children. Do you see how my values were at odds? I struggled with that decision. Do I take them with me? Do I cancel and postpone this program and go maybe after 2 years? Now, I have come out. I have born Girls for Girls. It has become a global phenomenon. But at home, I still struggle with my children. Like my daughter, she really missed out. The year or so I was away because I also worked in another country. It was difficult. So what we are telling you as mentors, the girls and yourselves are going to face difficult situations. It may be a family thing. You can say, I'm honest. I'm very honest. And then you're working in an organization where it's very hard to stay honest, where everyone around you has amassed the most wealth. They have cars, they have billions of shillings on accounts. And you're the only one who remains poor. And you're like, but really, why don't I join them? You know? But the hardest are when it's a very great situation. I'll give you an example of young women. And I think, Angela, we were mentoring on this cohort together. These were young women in Kenya. They were in their 30s. It was a cohort of they were in their 20s and 30s. And many of them were facing immense pressures from their parents. Why aren't you getting married? Where are your children? At least, okay, now leave the man, just get us children. These girls were 30s. They were doctors. They were lawyers. They were professionals. They should have been proud in that moment of where they were. But they are organized. Their society was pushing them, because in Africa and in many parts of the world, if you're 35 without a child, without a man, are you seen as a success? Often they're looking at you as you've not arrived, you've failed. So many of the girls were crying. It was a crying session. I remember in my small circle, girls shared from the heart, they feel like failures. They even no longer want to go to family gatherings because you're 39 and you're waiting. You're waiting to be rescued by this knight in shining armor, because society feels if you're a 39-year-old in an African setting without a man, without a child, you've really not succeeded. And so for them, organization was pushing them. And guess where girls are ending up? They are running to spam banks. They are running to best friends and tell them, just give me a child. They are being pushed into these situations that they may not want to. These are the things you're going to hear in these circles. If you're dealing with young girls in the teens, they are being pushed for sex by their boyfriends. And maybe they're saying, oh, I want to remain a virgin, or I don't want to have sex. But they're being pushed. And maybe in her class, she's the only virgin left. And she's wondering, why am I holding on? Is there any reason for me to hold on? You know? Or you're dealing with young women. I remember one of the cases we faced. We were dealing with young women in the pharmaceutical sector. And this girl had not worked for 5 years. And she had a child who was 4 years. And she got a job. And the HR recruiter told her, you have to pay me 30% of your salary for the next year. And so we were divided in the room. Some of us were saying, I will pay it. I need the job. And others were saying, no, I can't pay that money. How can I pay it? You know, I'll report him. So you end up not with a job. You have a child you have to feed. Do you see the challenging situations we are faced with? So for us, we can't be as mentors. We cannot be there all the time to help our mentees. What we do through this thing that Neo has talked about is the framework. We have a framework under Girls for Girls that we say, look, just know that in each situation, you have your value system. It may be compromised, it may be challenged, but this is a framework that helps you go through it. And the first is establish the issues. What is the issue I'm dealing with? What am I dealing with? What is the situation I'm faced? Don't just think, oh my God, I've been asked by that boss to sleep with him, I must. Establish the issues. Then establish the options or the strategy you have. I mean, if you like the girls who are deciding to go to the spam bank or what, just know you're going to have to raise this kid alone. Of course, you're always going to have questions around where is the father of this kid. I have a friend actually took that route. Up to now, she's being asked, but where is the father of the kid? But who is, you know, for the rest of the child's life, even the child would ask you, but where is my father? So you have to know the options and the strategies opening and the consequences. So this framework that we have, we tell young women, we are not always going to be with you when you have to take tough decisions. But just know that you have a village that you can sound ideas of. You also have yourself to examine, and that always know in each situation you have options. Now, one of the things we are facing with increasingly is many young women who have taken maybe decisions that are at odds with their values often feel they can't forgive themselves. So you're having many girls go into depression, commit suicide. We went into a company where we were mentoring, and half of the girls had slept with the director because the director insisted, if you don't sleep with me, you won't go for field trips, you won't get per diem, you won't get promoted. And each of the girls was sleeping with this man. Can you imagine? It took Girls for Girls to raise the whistle, to tell HR, by the way, you have a problem of sexual violence in your office. And this was one of the top big taxpayers in the country, top, priding themselves, but the girls were all being forced to sleep with the director if they had to get per diem. And these were not young girls, these were women in their 30s. They had families, but to excel at your job, you had to sleep with the boss. And no one had spoken out. So we shared with them the framework and they reported. This was by module like 3 or 4. They reported and said, we cannot do this anymore. So we find that we also tell girls, forgive yourselves. Where you feel you've gone wrong, forgive yourself, because you don't want to be held hostage in your 30s, 40s. Oh, I slept with that professor that one time, and then you're held hostage for life. Forgive yourself and move on. Move on, but have this strategy that allows you to question these challenging situations. I thought I would reemphasize that. The module has it, your mentor's guide has the framework. Examine the issue, examine the strategies you have, and think of the consequences, and then take a decision, weigh it and take a decision. But always know in any situation, there is an option. That is a message you must pass on to mentees. Every situation has options. There's never a wall and a rock. You can have options in every situation, but each option will have consequences. In fact, let me close by saying when we were young, when we were in secondary school, my mother, there was a program called Consequences from Zimbabwe. And my mother was always sharing it on TV. On TV, when we would come for holidays, they would put Consequences. Consequences was about a young girl who, for the first time, she was in her, like 16, she slept with her boyfriend and she got pregnant, only once. And so our parents would try to drive the fear of God in us by playing Consequences every holiday. You know, we have 5 girls in my family. So my mother was always worried that she would have 5 girls all getting pregnant one after the other. So they would play Consequences. But when I grew up, of course, you recognize that, yes, they wanted just to show us that for every action you take, there are going to be consequences. And so this is what we try to tell the mentees. If you take the money quickly from your organization and you think you're taking bribes and enriching yourself, there are always going to be consequences. So always examine. But life is not a straight path. There are going to be circumstances that challenge your value system. And then you have to see how you take a decision. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And thank you, Neil.
Thank you so much, Neil. Thank you so much, Alan. We had one of our mentors raise her hand. You seem to have lowered your hand. Catherine, yes.
Yes, thank you so much, Alan and Neil. That was a very powerful presentation, but I wanted to draw it a little bit back to running for public office. In the current work arena we have, like you said, there are some sensitive topics that are going on. For instance, some girls or some people wanted to apply for some positions, big positions in different NGOs, but then the criteria for getting into those positions required a certain identity, a certain, change of identity, a certain way of life, a certain form that required these girls to, to go against their value systems, their norm systems. And it has become a challenge now that if you're not for them, you are against them. And if you're against them, you can't work for them or with them. So I'm also asking in that line, how do you, in case some of those things come up, like you're in a session with these girls and these issues come up, maybe sexual harassment, maybe maybe it's with the bosses, maybe it's also to do with that identity issue. They are being coerced to go a certain direction and they don't feel like it. How do you address it? Because it's really sensitive. It involves management, it involves the directorate. How do you approach it? Like, how do you come to a decision with the girls and then you are able to address that issue and make a whistle, and you blow a whistle for that? Thank you.
Neo, do you want to take it, or let Neo try and then we can come in?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on what you were saying based on a couple of examples that I will give. When you're mentoring, it depends on the age group that you're looking at. I think it's easier when the age group, it's like school, like junior school, senior school, because in that element, you are either auntie, mommy, you're a grown up, so you are guiding. You're able to approach the teacher, even the parents, through the guidance of the teacher, and then you take it from there, because now you're dealing with a minor. You're dealing with someone who is of the age that you're able to have control over how the process goes. But if it's in the workplace, I must say, now it takes me back to what I said earlier, because I'm just going to reiterate and emphasize on something I didn't say. Every organization has got policies, it's got procedures, and it's got processes. But you find out, even with example, there is no organization that does not have how to deal with sexual harassment procedure. But you find women are still getting sexually harassed through sexual favors and such. It's because such procedures are not being used. So when you are dealing in a situation whereby it's in a company, it's in an organization, you actually go back and look at the policies and procedures which are not being followed. That's the first thing you need to do, because you don't want to go to a company and then there's a problem and you don't understand the protocols behind how to do things right. You are having the right mindset, your heart is in the right place, but you don't want to make a mistake and make the situation worse. So you go to the company's policies and procedures and you say, this is the company procedure, this is the company policy, this is the process. Why is it not being followed? There are processes to follow, because normally with most companies, there's HR, there's ER, meaning employee relations. So you don't necessarily just barge into the boss's office and then you are there, you're upset, on behalf of whoever has been, you know, unfairly treated. You understand from the person you're speaking to, you follow the right channels, you advise such that at the end, whatever happens, the person will not be, you know, stigmatized for violating something. So to me, that's the first thing you must do. See which policy and procedure has been violated and take it from there. I think someone will add more on that. Thank you.
Yeah, let me speak quickly because we don't want to hold you guys longer. We are 6 minutes over, but, and as many of you have seen, it's a powerful program. One, this just introduces you to our modules. You will learn more as you work. As I said, it's a muscle. The moment you join into a cohort, you start learning more. And remember, you also learn from the mentees. But let me talk about what Neo has said. Most organizations will have policies, but often there's a fear and a culture of silence and a culture of fear and repercussions. So often it has taken a third party, like say G4G comes in and then we're able to raise this. Or as I think it's Angela and Ngonzi who mentioned it during the negotiations, having a third party speak for you, allies. We try to encourage mentees to have allies who can speak for them, people who can speak for them, because now we have been in a number of organizations and you find there is a culture of silence around sexual violence, or there's a culture of harassment, or there's a culture of bullying. And these girls don't have where to say these things. And so when they get that safe space, remember your role as a mentor to create that holding environment where people feel free to now start sharing some of these very painful things. Then you as a mentor are able to discuss with your leaders in G4G and with others, say, look, how can we do this? Of course, protecting the people. Because normally organizations have these policies, but the culture that pervades there is one that does not encourage you to report. And what we have had to do in the past is then either do, what do you call it, whistleblowing, or go in as G4G and say, look, after, especially as we're giving feedback, this is what we are finding across the organization without naming names. Yeah. So there are many ways. Then in terms of other things like referrals, especially if you're in a group where you're seeing there's such a huge perception towards depression, suicide, countries like South Africa have developed very strong referral systems. In Uganda, they have developed very strong systems for psychological support, where they have mental training. Mental health is a big issue. We have a number of counselors who are working with mentees. Of course, they charge, but they also provide pro bono services, free services, where they say give mental health talks. So again, talk to the leadership in G4G where you are, so that they can see how they can support you. Some of the things are beyond us, but we try to work through referrals and try to see where we are seeing things emerging. We see how we can address them, like with the mental health. Yeah. I think the main things for people to know that there's always options and that you can take action. Remember all the modules we have talked about: options, action, creating value. Options, actions, creating value. We as mentors are just to show these girls and women that you can actually take action, whatever the situation is. At times, I told you of today, the lady who said, I'm in a storm. I need to weather this storm. At times, the life seems so terrible for us. Feel things are not going well. Even as mentors, you're not going to go every day to mentor when everything is okie-dokie and fine. At times, you mentor when things are so dark in your own life. And how can you give when you feel you don't have? But what we tell them is that through this village, we have a supporting framework. And I think Robin spoke about it at the beginning. This village that allows you to have a space of sisters that you can go to and say, my dears, it's not just about partying and dancing, but today I need you. I am facing this and I don't know how to go forward. I have personally a big board of sisters that help me, even on difficult issues at work. You can imagine I'm leading a team. Like this year, we have to spend $80 million, $80 million this financial year. So you can imagine the kind of challenges I face at work on a day-to-day basis. But I have a team of sisters in my board that I go to and say, my God, I have this HR issue, human resource issue. I am struggling. I need your help. You know, then I go to that one and say, I'm dealing with this issue with my boss. How can you help me? I don't feel alone. I'm working with people. So it's options, it's value, it's creating value. In negotiations, we learned that you have to create value. If you want you're not going to go and ask for salary. I'm responding to Lois's question. And I want a salary. If you don't give me, I'm out. I want you to marry me. If you don't marry me, I'm out. Don't create positions. Instead, look at the value that you're creating. And people say, okay, actually, if give Ellen this promotion, she will actually bring us more business, maybe in this and this way. So we are always teaching mentees about creating value. But as I said, this is an introduction. You will get to know more about the cohort, about mentoring as you join cohorts in your countries. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for taking us through that, both Neo and Alan. Ladies, do we have any more questions? Please feel free to raise your hand or type in the chat box. As we do so, I have shared a feedback form on the chat box. Please take a moment. It will take about a minute just to fill out the form and let us know how the session has been. Let us know your takeaway and areas of improvement so that you can also make it better for the next group that will be coming. But thank you so much for your active involvement and engagement in this session. So let me see. Alan says, thank you to amazing trainers, facilitators, and to you, our mentors. So I hope we are filling the feedback form. Yes,
yeah, I can speak as they fill the feedback form. I can speak to the joining aspects. So sisters,
yeah,
first of all, put on your cameras. We did it, and thank you to Mercy. Mercy did it afraid. We threw her in the deep end and said, you're going to lead for Team Kenya. You're going to moderate, because Betty, who was supposed to do this, had her daughter's school day. Again, you can see how we work as a team. We try to support each other. Never feel you're like out alone. There's always going to be someone who is willing to support or who is available to support. So ladies, put on your cameras. We have come to the end. Now, let me tell you how you become active. Please don't stop here and think, oh my God, that was so good. That was so life-changing, and you just sit with it. Your countries need you. Even you don't have to mentor in your country. There always a country that is starting a cohort or a circle. I know, like Hilda has been with us here. Hilda is in Tanzania. She's going to start a new cohort. She's just finished a cohort of young women who have started initiatives, who lead NGOs, and they often fail halfway through because they are not confident or strong enough to continue with their passion and their journey. So she started to mentor them to see how they can get their NGOs to even grow stronger. Now she's starting another cohort. So countries are always going to need mentors. Now, what will happen is that Velma and Mercy will share your details with the country coordinators from the countries you're in. And like for Ghana, where we are going to start a specific program next year, but for others, there are always going to be circles already and cohorts already working. So you'll be added to groups. And then if you can start even as early as now or early in the new year, and don't think you have to master it all. As I said, it's a muscle. As long as you start, you have your mentor's guide. Remember, it's your story. If it's communication, you have a story on communication. If it's negotiation, you have a story on negotiation. And remember, there are also the professors' videos to help you through the frameworks. Do you see? So it makes it much easier. But the most important is you and your story. So please don't sit with your knowledge. They are going to reach out to you, and then countries often onboard you and put you on their WhatsApp groups, and then you get more information, and then they will add you to cohorts that are starting. So I just want to thank the trainers. I want to thank the facilitators, Mercy, Velma, Santa. I want to thank you all. It's not easy to sit through 3.5 hours, but you did it. Of course, after this, go and dance a bit. I'm going to do some more dancing. So you wanted to take a photo, Velma?
Oh, yes.
Are you there, Velma?
Yes, I'm here.
Please take a photo while we have some people shining. And we appreciate your feedback. Send in your feedback, ladies. We try to make this different, better. And you can even do as many trainings as possible. I've seen people like Joyce. Joyce has trained like 10 times. She keeps coming back because there are going to be different trainers. Next time it will be South Africa leading, or it will be Uganda, or it will be Botswana. So you always hear from different trainers. And then you learn so much more. Yeah. But thank you so much. And back to you, Mercy.
Awesome, great. Velma, you ready?
Okay, let's see the smiles on the count of 1, 2, 3. Okay, another one. 1, 2, 3, flowers.
Flowers. You know, I've been watching Korean soaps, so these days I try to count in Korean.
Oh wow.
I don't know if there are any others like you and me who are watching those Korean soaps. They can be quite addictive. And you know, some of them are romances and they never kiss until after 16 episodes. Then that's when they do that. but you find you're so gripped and you're in there and you're watching. Oh my God, you feel you're in South Korea or North Korea. Anyway. So when Velma was counting, I was thinking of counting in Korean. Back to you.
You should have actually. Maybe we'll have laughed better and avoid the smiles, you know. We have come to the end of today's training. Thank you so much. Alan, you've been able to share the next steps. So expect feedback from your county coordinators on the next step. You should be having an in-country training or being added to your various G4G Mentors WhatsApp group. So thank you so much, ladies. We really appreciate you being here throughout, and we wish you a fantastic weekend. You enjoy the rest of the weekend.
Thank you. And Velma will play some music so that people